Ba 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 ba. Ba ba ba. How we doing with the audio? As always, there's audio trouble. There's all kinds of things. Compton, first in the door. Good to see you, my man. Always a pleasure, each and every time. This weekend, I went and saw my bees. And I got a honey super sitting right over there. And it's full of honey. I'm pretty happy about that. I might actually end up with more honey this season. This year, rather. We'll see. I got one hive that's just like producing. It's just like a big, bulky hive just going. I got two other hives that I think will produce honey this season. I had a pretty big die-off this year. So if I can get back to having just like five full hives ready to go, I'll feel pretty good about it. And it looks like that's what's going to happen. Honey. And I've already got people around me asking if I can put a hive on their property to help pollinate them, which would be really good. It's good opportunities for expansion. It's always good to get bees into gardens and to be pollinating in gardens, right? That's what they do. Did you know that bees pollinate? My vision for all of this beekeeping is literally to just have bees in gardens pollinating the hell out of like orchards and blueberries and just vegetable gardens, plants. And that's really the dream, is to pull as much and to leave the hive alone, really. A lot of beekeeping is just pollination, is moving hives, and that requires a lot of moving hives around, and I don't care to really do that. How's it going, comrade? It is going. I've actually had a pretty good week, I gotta tell you. Going out and helping my friend with his property. I used a sledgehammer to break up a bunch of concrete over the weekend. Move some stone around. I read The Godfather, because there was one rainy day where we couldn't really do any work because it was outside work. And so he had a copy of The Godfather, and so I just sat down and was like, cool, I'm just going to crush The Godfather. And you know what my big takeaway about reading The Godfather is given the political climate we're in, the mafia might as well exist, right? We might as well have a mafia. When you take a look at like what's going on in the American political landscape and the Canadian political landscape, hell, the European, the Western political landscape, when you take a look at these liberal democracies and their high-minded, virtuous posturing, you're like, you take a look at what they're actually doing and what they're actually, and how they're actually acting, and then you read something like The Godfather and you're like, oh yeah, I mean, this organization might as well exist. Like, it's just as corrupt. Its operations are like just as shitty. The people in it are just as bad. And it's like, at least there's like a code of conduct in the mafia. At least when they're like killing people, it's like, oh, that makes a type of sense, I guess. You know, they're not really just like running around randomly picking random people up off the street and doing random shootings and stuff. They're like, no, we got to hit this guy because he's going to hit us, or like we want to take his operations over, so we're gonna go do that. So there's like a logic to it. Whereas when our administrations do their acts of extraordinary violence, they're just senseless, right? Like our governments commit just senseless slaughter that doesn't make any sense, doesn't further anyone's goals, doesn't help anyone. Doesn't even help the people who are doing the slaughtering. Like, it's just pointless slaughter for the sake of slaughter. And so I just like finished The Godfather, and I was like, yeah, if that's what the mafia is like, that's fine. They can exist. I have no complaints. Canadian government versus the mafia. Okay. Like, Seems like to get anything done in our current climate and current environment, it's like you might as well be a mafia boss. Like, I love that because sometimes people will criticize like Putin or even Stalin, and they'll be like, these guys are just like mobsters or gangsters, and I'm like, and like, so they were like philosophically superior than politicians, is what I'm hearing. Like, that's pretty much where we're at. And I'm having like more and more, I'm beginning to see more and more people, and it's coming from people who I would describe as like democratic socialist leaning, like that they're on the left, they're sympathetic to democratic socialism, but they kind of acknowledge that democratic socialism is not going to go far enough. There's plenty of people that I see on TikTok or see around on social media who are just like, they know shit's fucky, like they know things have gone sideways and they don't know what to do about it at all, and so they're going to start, but they're starting to be like, oh hey, yeah, like why aren't we straight up asking for tribunals? Like, why isn't this a major talking point? Why isn't it like a major talking point literally every time the news turns on? How come there isn't a panel discussion about, so when's the tribunals? Like, when are we actually going to like sit everybody down and be like, so what was your relationship with Jeffrey Epstein? Like, we've got these documents here. And it's because we're still kind of in the middle of the shit. Like, we're still crunching it out. What's the article that I really loved on this count? I'm so organized. Blanche begs judge not to fine him $1,000 a day over the Epstein files. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche called the proposed fine absurd. So, the Attorney General is getting fined by a court $1,000 a day because they're not complying with the law. Very straightforwardly, the law is, hey, release all the Epstein files. Like, release all the documents pertaining to Jeffrey Epstein. And there's like millions of documents they've refused to release. And we can only speculate on what's in those documents. But if it's like worse than the documents we currently have, which it likely is the case, or it's much more going to be much more indicting and much more straightforwardly like, oh yeah, here they are openly talking about eating kids. Like, here they are like giving hard names and hard evidence and like photographs and videos of them engaged in these acts. That's kind of what I assume it is. And I think that's what we have to assume it is. And again, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We have to assume that they're all involved in it. Like, until the files are actually released and somebody actually goes through them and is actually like, okay, this person did this and this name was here and this is here and this is this, right? We just have to assume that anybody who is in the Hollywood strata, anybody who's going to those Diddy parties, anybody who is in the political system at all, like, we just have to assume that they're part of it. Because the only people who we could probably look at and be like, chances are good you're not part of it, would be the people who are demanding the release of those files, right? Like, I would say it'd be very surprising to find out that Thomas Massey is a big Epstein guy. That'd be very shocking to find that out. But who knows? Maybe he's pulling like a double bluff on all of us. Maybe it's a big, like, shocking hullabaloo. The big news does seem to be the Canadian wildfires are something of a wake-up call, I think, for most people. I think lots of people are like, oh yeah, like, climate change is going to have real profound effects. Like, it's going to do real serious things. And year over year, it's just going to get worse and worse. Like, we had last week, the sky was orange here in Toronto, and you couldn't really go outside and successfully. Like, the air quality was just absolutely brutal. And now you've got a whole bunch of Americans complaining about it because that smoke traveled south because the Earth doesn't have borders and the Earth doesn't give a crap about your stupid imaginary line. Like, it's the smoke's not going to just stop at the Canadian-American border. It's just all silly as shit, isn't it? Like, it's just silly. Like, and the people who are in charge are like silly clown people. Like, how how can we possibly be taken seriously? Uh, oh, the big takeaway this week. How could I possibly forget? Uh, we really have crossed the Rubicon now where if anybody actually still dares to say, how are you going to pay for that? You literally can just say, shut up. Like, you literally just can be like, okay, you're just a clown. Like, the Iran war, the Trump administration is saying the Iran war is costing $100 billion. But even better than that, Andrew, good to see you over on Twitch. Even better than that, yeah, Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, says the Pentagon needs more money for, quote, fighting communism on our own shores. The number that he's looking for is $350 billion. That's more than enough to give everybody free college, to end homelessness, to end food insecurity. And, like, what are you talking about? Like, you need more money for fighting communism on your own shores to the tune of $350 billion? Anybody going along with that is just as clownish as it gets. If you feel like you're losing the ideological battle amongst the youth, which you are, maybe it's because you're fucking Nazis. Like, maybe the rise of communism has something to do with the fact that you guys are weird, creepy, little weirdo Nazis. But we're not really interested in taking that seriously, it seems. Like, it really does seem like we're still a society that's like, let's hear the Nazi out. What does the Nazi have to say about this? Like, people are still, like, listening to Ben Shapiro for some reason. Like, Ben Shapiro still has a listenership. There are still people who are, like, tuning into that and being like, let's hear what the Nazi has to say today. And it really is to the point where we have to say it's because they are Nazis. And, like, it's a real, like, Batman phenomenon. Like, you guys have heard me say it before on this channel. That, like, Batman spends all this money on, like, body armor, bat-shaped jet, bat-shaped car that's like a jet car, all these gadgets and doodads, bat supercomputer. He helps fund a space station for the Justice League. He spends, like, billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars to fight, like, low-level criminals like the Joker, who really only have power because they have this, like, multitudes and multitudes of henchmen who are basically just, like, poor people with nothing else going on, who are just like, yeah, I guess I'll work for the Joker because at least I get a payday out of it. And if Bruce Wayne just took the money that he was spending on his ridiculous project, this just, like, little kid's idea of how to confront crime and justice, and on his vengeance quest, if he just took that money and was like, hey, potential henchmen for the Joker or the Riddler or the Penguin or any number of these clowns. Like, Joker is literally a clown. the If you just took that money and was like, hey, henchman, how about you just like work for me? How about I just pay you to not do crime? Real straightforward. Just like, here's the money, just don't do crime. When the Joker shows up, just politely decline. Just say, no, that's cool, thanks. Right? And maybe like report the Joker so that we can like go get him. But like, that would be effective. That would actually work. Right? Like, we know that the healthcare system in America is more expensive than a universal healthcare system. So you don't even need to be like, if somebody's like, how are you going to pay for that? You just need to be like, it's cheaper, my man. Like, it's just cheaper. And that's just the truth for so many of these social ailments, so many of these things. It's become a truism. It's become so silly and ridiculous and apparent and like obvious that it just leaves me being like, what's the holdup? What's the holdup? And when you look at what the holdups are, it's like, oh, it's just basic like racism, religious stupidity, straight up, they gotta earn it, from people who have never really worked a day in their life. And you're like, what kind of clown shoes society are we building here? Where we're literally going to take $350 billion to fight communism on our own shores, which, near as I can tell, just amounts to just like kicking in random doors until you're satisfied that you got all the communists. Like, where is this story? Hold on. Yeah. From The Independent. The FBI will no longer investigate ICE shootings. So, like, it is open season. Right? Amid heightened public scrutiny of ICE agents following shootings in Texas and Maine, reports suggest the agency will now only be investigated by itself. Parasite investigates Parasite, discovers that parastatism is actually the way forward. A demon from hell actually argues that hell is good for you and heaven bad. It's just the audacity of everything now. Just the overwhelming clownish audacity of it all, where we're genuinely expected to sit by and watch just some of the most reprehensible, barbaric, Nazi-level shit happen in our society and just be like, cool with it. And the Democrats are actually trying to convince us that the path forward from all of this is to just return to the kind of democratic status quo. DM writes, good evening, John. Good to see you, DM. New York Communist Mayor Mamdani has issued an arrest warrant for Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu for crimes against humanity. Will this actually happen when Netanyahu meets with Trump next week? Will Netanyahu end up in The Hague and be tried for his crimes as promised? No. Mamdani has already said that he doesn't have the authority to arrest Netanyahu. Like, there's your kind of classic democratic socialism right there, right? Like, come in, do small-scale piecemeal reformism, and it's been pointed out by others that, like, the only reason why people are, like, gobsmacked by Mamdani, the only reason why people are just like, I can't believe he's actually doing things and getting stuff done, is because we've become so used to our politicians being Epstein's scale pedophiles and rapists and criminals. Like, our politicians are thugs and mafia bosses. Like, Doug Ford here in Toronto is like a mafia boss. That's who he is. And, like, we're so used to politicians just saying, like, on the campaign trail, being like, yeah, I've got a promise and we're going to do that thing. And then when they get in the power, they're just like, I looked into it, but go fuck yourself. And pretty much not doing a goddamn thing. We're so used to that when any politician gets into a position of power saying anything, like, I am going to actually enforce the tax code on billionaires. Like what's Mamdani's big slam dunk win? Like, what's he done that makes everybody be like, wow, I can't believe that things have actually, like, he's literally just doing his job. He's not a radical. He's not even on the far left. I would argue that pretty much everything that he has done in his position is completely non-political. That he's literally like, I am enforcing the law of the position of mayor of New York. Yeah, like, I came into power, saw that there was a balance, a budget imbalance, and so I just enforced the existing tax code as it stands currently. Maybe I raised taxes by like 1% on a specific group of people in order to shore up the things that we're doing. Or like, there was a big snowfall, so let's get New Yorkers out on the street to shovel the snow, and we'll pay them $30 an hour to do that. That's like not a left-wing position, right? Like, it's not a left-wing position for a politician to pay people for their labor to do a job. And we're just so pathetically gaslit and whipped that when somebody like that actually takes a position of prominence, because, like, there are mayors like this all across America, just normal, everyday, regular folk doing the job of mayor. We're just so used to it being filled by criminals and mob bosses and just shitbags and pedophiles and rapists, which has become the most common thing, that when somebody takes the position and is like, oh, I should actually do the job, we're blown away by it. We're like, wow, far left communist. It's like, it's total clown shoes. Like, it's total clown shoes. So Mamdani was never going to arrest Netanyahu. Like, good for him for pointing out what is the truth, that Netanyahu is a war criminal. He has been charged by the International Criminal Court. There is a warrant for his arrest. And the government of America should arrest Netanyahu based on what the International Criminal Court has to say about it. The Trump administration does not abide by the rule of law, and certainly not by international law. And so Netanyahu's going to show up to New York, parade himself around like the arrogant prick he is, right? And everybody's just going to watch him do it. He's going to shake Trump's hand. He's going to give a speech at the UN. Maybe the people in the UN will walk out. Right? We've seen that before. That the people at the UN will walk out when it's his turn to speak. But like, the idea that Mamdani is going to actually go and arrest him, no, he won't. Like, he's the definition of a centrist. Like, what's he done that you would even consider left? Like, really, what's he done that you would even consider like a left-wing policy? Because everything that he's done is essentially just like Yeah, we balance the budget. Okay, so that's a conservative policy. Uh, we paid some people to do a job. Okay, that's a conservative policy. Um, we raised taxes by 1%. Okay, that's like a centrist policy, right? Both conservatives and liberals and leftists raise taxes. So it's just a big old fucking nothing burger, right? Like it's just as Hull says here. Good to see you, by the way, Hull, and good to see you, Radio Halifax and Long Defiant. Good to see you guys. It's all performative, baby. It's all just for show. It's all just WWE, right? Mamdani knows who his base is. He knows what his base wants. He knows what he should say. And his base is basically screaming at him, being like, hey, Netanyahu's a war criminal. And he's like, well, okay, yeah, Netanyahu's a war criminal. And everybody in the political structure knows that it doesn't really matter. The long term, like if I was an Israeli, like if I was Netanyahu, and if I was in the Knesset, if I was in, I'd be very concerned about the long term viability of the project. But like this next election is going to be a complete farce. You're going to see like the Democratic primary. This Democratic primary, I think, is going to be finally the moment when the communists get to say, you're going to start taking us seriously? I got to assume that you're being sarcastic here, Drek Luminosity. I got to assume it. Have I ever considered just for a moment that you're the loser and everybody else in the Epstein class is a winner? Because, I mean, come on, look how much money they have. Because that's what matters, right? Money? Long Defiant writes, Mamdani's policies basically make a population, a little more comfy so they can be more productive and create better profits for their owners. Yeah, and anti-communist rhetoric basically is an effort to push liberals to the right. To me, I think that what Mamdani really, what he exists for, and what people like him always exist for, is to try to convince the public that there is an electoral solution. But as I was just saying, I think this next election is going to really reveal it in the nakedest way possible. Because what you will see is what you've been seeing. Like the trend in the Democratic Party has been that in the Democratic primary, there's a front runner. There's a person who everyone coalesces under and goes, this is our guy. And that's been Bernie Sanders the last couple of times. And the populace is very clearly like, yeah, Sanders is our guy. We'd like to see Sanders at the top of the ticket. We'd like to see him run as the president of the United States for the position. And the superdelegates stand in and put their own person in. They did it with Hillary. They did it with Joe Biden. They did it with Kamala. So like, it's going to get very naked. It's going to get very, very, very naked, and be and my position on it will be very clear, which is, you think there's an electoral solution? What a joke! Like what a funny thing to say. Like people seem to have forgotten what actual communist policies are, and they're not, let's seek electoral reform, right? We are not communists. Watch us prove it by doing bad things to workers. Yeah. Direct Luminosity, how are the bees? The bees are doing very well. I actually got a honey harvest out of them just this weekend, which is really good, actually. I've got one hive in particular that's just bursting, just absolutely buzzing and buzzing and buzzing. I had a big die-off at the start of the season, and so I've been trying to bring them back to full force. I think one hive, it survived the winter, and I left it alone. I didn't use it for any splits or anything like that. And so I had one hive that was just like busting right from the beginning, and that's the hive that really produced. and I suspect it'll produce again, which is really good. And then I've got two other hives that didn't produce yet, but have now gotten up to a force where it's like, okay, you guys are going to produce, I can tell. So I might get quite a bit of honey this year. And the goal is really to end the season with 5 strong hives and then enter next season with those 5 strong hives. I'd also like to split them up because I kind of left them all together this season. But I'd really like to split them up, get them on various different properties. Because I think what's also hurting them is that they're all kind of together, and that kind of interferes with them a little bit. But they're doing well. I've got honey. I just need to harvest it. It's sitting right there. Like, the blowback that's going to come in the wake of Donald Trump is going to be, like, Donald Trump was bad, right? Like, this period of time has been very illuminating for Americans, Westerners, and the world. That everybody had kind of deluded themselves into this belief that, oh, we're actually progressing as a nation, and we're actually, it's like, no, you just had like a performative managed democracy that gave this illusion of progressiveness and allowed movement along certain lines, right? So it's okay to be gay, for example. Get to work, right? And so it's this like performative progressivism. It's totally fine if you want to be a trans homeless person, right? Like, that's completely fine. And the blowback off of that, like this blowback into Trumpism and into this Trump era and into fascism and the rise of Nazism in America, like the backbone of it, like the actual spine of it, is that people have legitimate grievances that were not being taken seriously by the Democratic Party. And the blowback off, like, I actually think this whole Trump period is the Democrats' fault. There's just, like, no reason it should exist, right? Like, for as clownish as it is, for as stupid as it is, for as ridiculous as it is, think about how easy it would have been to actually diffuse. Like, for real. Like, think about how simple it would have been if the Democrats were of a mind to have actually diffused it, which I don't believe that they actually are. But if they were, how would they have done it? They would have just said, oh yeah, okay, Sanders is right. The universal healthcare system is definitely something we need to move forward with. And so we will. Right? And that would have just diffused it. That would have been the end of Donald Trump and his political ambitions. Like, give people something. Allow people to be reintegrated into the economic system. And the Democrats could have very easily done it. They had a strong voice pushing in their party for that, who was actually winning their primaries, which they stole from him via the superdelegate system. And now here we are in this Trump era, and people are still kind of this deluded belief. You can tell. People are still of this deluded belief that, like, oh, we'll still sort this out via our electoral system, and that's just not going to happen. Like, the superdelegate system is designed to ensure that it can't happen. That the people who need to be the only people who need to be convinced in the Democratic Party are the superdelegates. Andrew writes, the system no longer fights problems, it fights those who name them, shrugging off all moral and legal obligation. late-stage capitalism in its purest form, instead of the rule of law, legalized violence to protect privilege. Yeah. Like, it's feudalism, baby. It's feudalism. Drug luminosity. Yeah, The Atlantic put out a post about this. Yeah. Democrats became great by fighting the left. Like, it is going to be like I want to believe that Americans will stop eating burgers and get off their couch and actually start confronting the evils and the ills of their society. I'd really like to believe that. You see a little glimmer of that with the data centers, right? Like the whole data center situation, which is just clown shoes. It's just clown shoes upon clown shoes. Like another moment where it's like, hey, we should feed children. How are you going to pay for that? $1 trillion for data centers. Okay. What are these for exactly? Oh, so Grok can make child porn. Got it. Got it. Hold on. DSA is a parasite. The Left-Wing Faction Hijacking the Democratic Party by James Kirchick. Even after a string of recent victories in congressional primaries by members of the Democratic Socialists of America, National Democrats appear slow to recognize that ideologies on the left are attempting a hostile takeover of the party, otherwise known as voting. Right? Only Nazis like this would actually make the argument that voters are coming in and voting and running people in primaries. This is a hostile takeover. It's literally how your party structure works. It's literally how politics actually works, right? Like the whole theory of your political system, even though the Democratic Party, because of its superdelegate system, is no longer a Democratic Party, right? And it hasn't been since Truman, because anybody who actually wins the primary can just be turned down in favor of the corporate candidate. That's actually how the Democratic Party actually works, right? So to describe it as a hostile takeover indicates a sort of entrenched fascist belief system, right? That any challenge to what you believe to be the proper power structure is hostile, even though no one's more hostile to Americans than Democrats. Like the only people who are slightly more hostile to the populace than Democrats are Republicans. But that's just because the Republicans are the iron gauntlet, while the Democrats are the silk glove. The DSA's ascent comes on the heels of a years-long effort by socialists and progressive activists to steer one of America's two major political parties towards identity politics, isolationism, and hostility to capitalism. There you go. 1 out of 3. Steer one of America's two political parties towards identity politics. Yeah, because there's no identity politics in the Republican Party, right? No, the Republican Party doesn't constantly stand up and be like, we've got to do something about trans people in sports. Trans people are the big problem we're all facing. 0.6% of the population is trans, and that's the issue we should all be focusing on. This isn't identity politics. You wanting to be gay is identity politics. Women voting? Identity politics. Removing the vote from black people? That's not identity politics whatsoever. That's just good white Christian values. Total clown shoes, dude. Isolationism, this doesn't make any sense at all. I have no idea where this isolationism thing... I think he just, threw a dart at a dartboard, and literally was just like, this is going to be a fun article. Thanks for suggesting to read this article, Direct Luminosity, because this one's going to be fun. I can already tell, because it's just so stupid and clownish. Like, I wish that I could get paid to publish these kinds of articles. I wish that somebody would actually give me money to just word vomit out a bunch of garbage. Like, so he throws a dart at a dartboard and it comes up isolationism. So he's just like, isolationism. That's what the DSA is supporting, for sure. Eggs, good to see ya. Hull writes, John, there's this boomer that always drops comments, post live streams. He's very pro-capitalist and all. Okay, he can come to the stream. I'm not going to spend too much time listening to the comments. Like, come to the stream. 6 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can show up. Like, imagine being pro-capitalist in this environment. It's just demented at this point. It's not even delusional. It's just a form of dementia at this point. Like, I'm glad that you willingly sacrificed your life to get a decent retirement. That's great. Go have your decent retirement. Go die, right? With your house and your money and all that kind of stuff. That's great. The world is literally burning. Your society is literally committing several genocides. Like, the only reason you're pro-capitalist is because none of it is affecting you. Because they left the straight white men alone. Right? And you get to grumble that, like, oh, these non-whites, no, they want money for themselves. Oh, they also want to survive? No! Like, I don't take people who defend the system seriously at all anymore. Like, it's getting to the point where even the people standing up and be like, well, but capitalism is just like, you're just edging on Nazism straight away. Like, you're just edging on it. Like, show me the difference between capitalism and Nazism, please. What's the true difference? Right? At what point do you think capitalism was not just acting exactly identically to Nazism? Was it when they were eradicating the First Nations people? Was it when they were enslaving the African continent? Was it during the Civil War? Like, when was the moment that you think capitalism was really firing on all cylinders? And what it really comes down to is just sort of a banal ignorance. Just like a willful stupidity at this point. Just like complete buying in to your own ignorance. Being just a dumbass on purpose. Because it benefits you. It means that you just get to sit on the couch and eat burgers and be a moron. So do that. I'm not going to spend any time reading your stupid comments. And if you come in here and make an ass of yourself, then I'll fucking make sure that you can't post any comments on this goddamn place anyway. Like, fucking pro-capitalist. I can't believe it. Like, it's shocking to see, like, your children are on fire, being raped by a pedophile club, and you're like, but the system that generated that is still good. Shut up. Like, it's embarrassing at this point. But hey, there are people who still think Jesus Christ is coming back at any moment. So it's like, okay. And my favorite is that the people who are like, Jesus Christ is coming back at any moment, so we've got to make sure that we hate everything he ever said. It's never a problem to eat burgers on the couch while watching the tube, though, to be sure, says John. If you say so, my man. Democrats looking for a way to reclaim their party can find inspiration in the career of Neil Kinnock. Some guy we've never heard of. Perfect. Who in the mid-1980s rescued the British Labour Party from a determined band of sectarian zealots. Oh, this is the 1980s, right? So you're looking at Thatcher. So this is probably a guy who completely betrayed Labour and sold out entirely to the Thatcher moment. No. Yeah, exactly. After Margaret Thatcher's Conservatives... Hold on. We're going to continue on this article because it's so fucking funny. Like, I'm really to the point where, like... It's kind of unbelievable that these people are this tone deaf. Like, that they're this stupid. Right? They're so bought into their stupid ideas and to the stupid worldview that they have that they're, like, actually publishing this stuff and being paid to publish this stuff. I guess when you're paid to be this stupid. After Margaret Thatcher's Conservatives surged to power in 1979, Labour responded by moving left. Yeah, one would think that, you have fucking fascists take over. Its 1983 election platform, promising centralized economic planning, unilateral nuclear disarmament, and the introduction of a price control commission, was so extreme that critics like this guy, right, Nazis like this guy, dubbed it the longest suicide note in history. Yeah, I mean, if your goal is to extract as much wealth from the public, and you consider that success, then anything that's like, yeah, you shouldn't be able to just extract wealth from the public for nothing. What a suicide note, right? After the party lost in a historic landslide to the Conservatives, major factions within Labour still insisted that the party wasn't left-wing enough. The Labour politician Edward Red Ted Knight famously declared that there can be no compromise with the electorate. One small but loud faction on Labour's left was the Militant Tendency, a highly disciplined group that took its name from the socialist newspaper around which its members gathered. Giant banners showing the faces of Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, Vladimir Lenin, and Leon Trotsky adorned its rallies. Awesome. I mean, unlike the Labour mainstream, which sought to alleviate inequality through democratic reform, Militant believed in the overthrow of British capitalism, by force if necessary. Yeah, based. This is awesome. With its own manifestos, conferences, leadership structures, and funding. Militant resembled a traditional political party in every respect but one. It didn't run candidates on a ballot line of its own. In a ploy that might sound familiar to Democrats in the United States today, Militant instructed its members to join Labour, ascend its ranks, and advance the group's cause from the inside. By the time Kinnock assumed leadership of the Labour Party after the 1983 disaster, Militant had been functioning as a party within a party for some 2 decades. Yeah, this is a familiar thing, right? The communists here in Canada tried to do a similar thing with the NDP. It doesn't really work, right? The reason why it doesn't work is that the corporate political apparatus within organizations like the NDP and Labour and the Democrats will just use you for a vote, right? So they know that there aren't enough of you. So if like 10% of the party is involved in this militant organization, okay, cool. They're still going to vote for Hillary Clinton, right? They're still going to allow Hillary. So you're creating a coalition and you're going along with corporate power structures with this idea of eventually we'll just take it over. And it doesn't actually work that way. Right? It just structurally doesn't work that way. It's a failed project from the outset. It's why it's never worked. Which is to be expected as a Trotskyist idea, right? So it doesn't work. At Labour's annual conference in Bournemouth, England in 1985, Kinnock's frustration boiled over. He spoke emotionally about how he owed the Labour Party every life chance that I have had since the time I was a child, and argued that far-left purists' impossible promises, like feeding kids, and commitment to theories over results imperiled Labour's ability to protect the welfare state. He denounced militant members as jester generals, and likened them to privately educated schoolboys who are willing to play politics with people's jobs and with people's services or with their homes. I mean, all of those things are politics. Like, you think that when conservatives allow landlords to buy up the housing market, that's not playing politics with your house? Well, you think when the housing market explodes and nobody can buy a house because 5 guys own 1,000 houses each, well, you think that's not playing politics with people's houses? This is just an embarrassing worldview. Like, it's just this embarrassing religious worldview that we see over and over and over again, where the only solution is free market capitalism, even as it's directly failing in front of your face. Like, nakedly failing. Militant members and their fellow travelers booed, and a former labor chairman stormed off the stage in anger. But Kinnock had the courage to say what many in labor were thinking. Most of the crowd roared their approval. Yeah, because they're bought. They were paid to be there. Like, in a television appearance the following month, Kinnock went further, denouncing Militant as a maggot in the body of the Labour Party. Despite fierce internal resistance, Kinnock ended up expelling hundreds of Militant members. More than 4 decades later, Kinnock's actions remain among the most memorable examples of a political leader confronting extremists on his own side. Yeah, because those who support capitalism are not extremists, right? Commit a genocide all you want, not extreme. Kill who you like, rape as many kids as you want, not extreme at all. What is extreme is standing up and saying, hey, maybe we shouldn't do any of that. That's what's extreme. Kinnock was amongst his generation's greatest political orators, to the point that Joe Biden, then a senator from Delaware, plagiarized some of his most effective lines. Hilarious. You got to get that in there, right? You got to get that dig in there. Although Kinnock never managed to become prime minister, he saved the Labour Party from electoral oblivion. He paved the way for a successor, Tony Blair, the well-known genocidal maniac, got involved in the Iraq War, literally sets the stage for the decline of the British working class. Like, this is who we're celebrating? Like, this is how completely out of touch and demented these people are. Like, Britain is literally boiling over with revolutionary fervor right now, in large part to people like Tony Blair. I mean, Margaret Thatcher is the real beginning of it, but Tony Blair basically took the baton from Thatcher and was like, yeah, we'll run with that. To steer the party back into power in 1997 and become the only Labour leader to win 3 successive elections. It's amazing what you can do with other people's money. Today, Democratic leaders find themselves in a quandary much like Kinnock's. The DSA's agenda is alien to mainstream fascists, Democrats, or at least it should be. The organization's draft platform calls for fully abolishing the police and prison system, based, drafting a new constitution, based, extending voting rights to non-citizens, based, and creating a democratic socialist republic. That's meaningless, but okay. The group holds the USA and NATO responsible for Russia's war against Ukraine, which is true, defends the communist dictatorship in Cuba, based, and pledges to shut down the Department of Defense and all overseas American military bases, based. We should vote for these people. We should just vote for these people. Jocko70. Don't know if I've ever seen you here before, my man. Flavio Bolsonaro 2027. Oy vey. So you really want the society to decline as fast as possible, eh? Liberals are nuts. Yeah, I agree. No liberals here. Are you a Bolsonaro fan, my man? Like, how embarrassing. I love burning my house down. Burning my house down 2027. Failure for everyone. People should have poverty and live live with okay. No Nazis in the chat, please. Get the fuck out of here, you loser. Jesus Christ. Like, it's just amazing how, like, stupid they are, right? Like, guys like Jocko, they're just dumb. It's just a stupid thing to say, right? Like, why should I listen to a single word you have to say? Why should I take anything you have to say seriously when you come out with that obvious Nazi shit? Get the fuck out of here. Literally inciting war. Like, there's a reason why everybody hates you guys. and why people think that you're just completely despicable. And this is it. You're just a despicable, horrible piece of trash. Go away and die in a manner that best suits you. Where the heck were we? Oh, yeah. To gain leverage within the Democratic Party, the DSA is employing a tactic that Trotsky dubbed entryism, the willful effort by a small disciplined cadre of radicals to infiltrate a more moderate organization and subvert it from within. It's the same tactic that throughout history far-left organizations such as Militant Tendency have routinely used to amass power, although they've never actually taken power with it. Like, you'll notice that it doesn't work, right? Like, this article is not really, like, putting a point on it and being like, hey, this strategy doesn't work, right? Big surprise. A Trotskyist idea that doesn't work. Unless the Democrats respond forcefully to the DSA's entryism, they risk being overrun by extremists who will poison the party's national brand and sap its capacity to compete with an already radicalized GOP. What do you mean by a radicalized GOP? Like, I wonder what he thinks a radicalized GOP actually is. In liberal enclaves, the DSA keeps getting stronger. Last month in Washington, D.C., a DSA candidate beat the outgoing mayor's chosen successor. And this fall in Los Angeles, a DSA city council member could unseat the incumbent Democratic mayor. Yeah, what is an unradicalized GOP? Yeah. Recently, 2 current members and 1 former member of the DSA, all endorsed by the group's most prominent elected official, New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani, defeated establishment Democrats, including the chairman of the House Hispanic Caucus, in congressional primaries. Since his inauguration, Mamdani has shown a moderate streak. Yeah, because he's a centrist, basically. One of the insurgents, a doctoral student in sociology named Daria Liza Avila Chavalier, is far more emblematic of the DSA's radicalism. She has called for the abolition of borders, awesome, police, awesome, and prisons, awesome, and endorsed the seizure of private property, awesome, opposes deportations on any grounds, awesome, and took part in a DSA-supported pro-Hamas rally, awesome, the day after the October 7th massacre. Yeah, based as shit. Recently in Colorado, a progressive 15-term Democratic member of Congress lost a primary election to a DSA candidate who refuses to condemn as anti-Semitic the firebombing of a demonstration for Israeli hostages. These victories mark major milestones for the DSA's overall political strategy. Yeah, just be reasonable, right? Like, to, like, pro-Epstein pedophile people, like this guy, reasonable shit sounds extreme. Right? That's really what it's come down to. It's like, we're basically standing up, and for the most part, people are like, hey, people should be able to have access to resources. Really, that's like the central thing. Like, this guy is picking on issues that are like plank number 16, right? Like, Article 16. It's like, okay, what's Article 1? Article 1 is like, everybody should have access to resources. Like, everybody should be able to have food and shelter. It should be like basic shit, right? Everybody should have access to food and shelter. Is this guy ever going to mention it? Of course not, because he knows that that's not something that people are really going to argue with, right? Like, who's actually going to stand up and say, oh, people should not have access to food and shelter? Oh, right, 40% of the society, because we're a fucking Nazi society. Got it, Chuck. Knowing that it doesn't have anything near the support to compete as a party in its own right, the DSA opportunistically uses the Democratic Party ballot line, which some members describe as a tool to get its candidate elected. To be fair, the electoral system is a two-party system. The system is heavily geared against third-party candidacies, right? Like, it's very, 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 very difficult to start a third party and actually get any traction. Systemically, it's designed to be that way. The Democrats and the Republicans work together to ensure that that's the case. So this line is like, while it's a strategy that's not going to work, and it's not going to work for very obvious reasons, it's literally all they can do. because the third party system has basically been shut down. And that's basically true since Ralph Nader, right? Like, Ralph Nader was basically shut out of the whole system illegally. But who cares about the law anymore? The DSA declined to endorse the Democratic nominee in the past 3 presidential elections. Yeah, because they're fascist, genocidal Nazis. Like, some of them are, like, embroiled in literal pedophile scandals. And members attack the Democratic Party's leaders as neoliberal corporate shills who must be overthrown. So they're accurate. Right? They're just accurate. It's just true. Like, baldly, nakedly true. Objectively true. That's the thing that writers like these don't seem to get. Is that they're like holding on to their pearls, being like, they attack the Democratic Party's leaders as neoliberal corporate shills who must be overthrown. Yeah, that's exactly who they are. Like, it's just like objectively the case. They are nothing but failures. When images of House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries appeared on television screens at the party celebrating the DSA slate's win in New York, the audience erupted into chants of "You're next." Awesome. The DSA is not shy about its ultimate designs. Yeah, because why would it be? It's the reasonable party doing the reasonable thing, right? To the shock of Nazis everywhere. A recent draft platform explicitly called for the eventual formation of an independent political party rooted in the working class majority, language that was eventually scrubbed. In fact, little about the DSA's membership of more than 100,000 people suggests any natural affinity or appeal to America's multiracial, geographically dispersed working class. Here comes the throwing of the shade. Because everybody knows the Republican and the Democratic Party are a multicultural milieu. A 2021 survey of DSA members found that only 8% of respondents lived in rural areas, as opposed to 20% of the American public. That more than 80% had a college degree, and that 85% were white. The Democrats' broad rainbow coalition looks much more like America than the DSA does. I mean, the Democrats are really good at branding, right? That's basically what they've been doing for the last 60 years. Right, is the Democrats have been doing, what's that called? Where they just, like, take people of color and put them into positions specifically to check a box. Right? And we know that's what they've been doing. So to compare, like, 60 years of doing that to a fairly new political party that is really getting started and coming out of, guess where it's coming out of, right? Universities and colleges. Is a weird thing to do. Propagandistic, one might argue. The DSA claims, against all evidence, that pulling the Democratic Party to the left will expand its electoral I love that. Against all evidence. You guys have lost against Donald Trump twice. Shut up. Like, it's so embarrassing that these guys say this kind of stuff, and it's like, you guys have lost to Donald Trump twice. Like, why should we actually take you seriously? Like, what logic do you have in your head that makes us think you're credible at all? Right? Like, a paper bag with the word politics written on it is more credible than you. You've lost to Donald Trump twice. In the most embarrassing fucking losses, maybe in electoral politics history. Like, just clownishly embarrassing. I cannot overemphasize how embarrassing it is to lose to a con man clown like Donald Trump. And you guys are still talking as if you're the experts. Shut up. To moderate Democratic critics, the group's recent victories in New York and elsewhere demonstrate little more than an ability to turn safe Democratic seats into an even deeper shade of blue. So, which is it, my man? Like, which is it? Like, we can't win or we can win. Which is it? I'm not excited about candidates who can turn blue seats navy blue, cobalt blue, or midnight blue, Rahm Emanuel, former head of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and a possible 2028 presidential contender, told me. A Democratic insider said so it's got to be true, right? Because they've been nothing but successful this last 20 years. In 2006, Emanuel helped the party pick up 30 House seats from Republicans. Neither the DSA nor the Bernie Sanders aligned entities, Our Revolution and Justice Democrats, have flipped a single one. I mean, that's just not true, right? Like, the Bernie Sanders coalition has definitely built steam. So we're just flatly big surprise. Desperate people just lie. That's okay. Yet, despite the faction's inability to win in purple or red districts, like, how long have these guys been around? Your political party has been around for like 150 years, and you're losing to Donald Trump, right? Because you're losers, and that's how it is. We've got a new political organization coming out of the woodwork, right? And already they have a mayor in New York. Like, all of this, it's just pathetic, right? Like, it's just disingenuous and pathetic. Like, the faction's inability to win in purple or red districts, districts they have never even run in. Like, Democratic Socialists enjoy a net favorability of 17 points among Democratic voters nationwide, compared with just 4 points for Democratic members of Congress. Yeah, it turns out running people who are literally just saying, hey, would you like your taxes to pay for things that help you, is popular. Who knew? Right? Who knew that just standing up in front of people and being like, hey, you know how you pay taxes? Would you like those taxes to actually, like, make your life easier? Vote for me. That's basically where we're at. And articles like this only help the Democratic Socialists. Like, this article is so condescending and out of touch and embarrassing that there are only two takeaways. You either agree with it, so you're just a dim-witted moron, right? Or you're like, yikes, these people need to be stopped, right? Those are the only two positions. Because this article is so just, like, embarrassingly condescending and childish that only a child could take it seriously. More Democratic voters view socialism favorably than those who say the same of capitalism, 66% to 42%. So even in the Democratic Party, 42% of them are just dim-witted losers. Right? There's still 42% of Democrats being like, the system that's raping children and murdering ethnic groups en masse. Yeah, because I got money. Made me rich. Socialism is an expansive term. Here we go. The argument that it just doesn't mean anything. People don't understand what the term means, right? Applicable both to Scandinavian social democracies with strong private sectors and to authoritarian communist regimes. It's just embarrassing. I just wish that we could actually have, like, a real conversation about this stuff, you know? Like, that's the thing that makes it all so clownish. Is that they're not even really attempting to make arguments anymore. Like, this is just clownish propaganda. That really only the choir could believe. Like, this is preaching to the choir at the highest level. When you're saying things like authoritarian communist regimes, it's just like, okay, so we don't really want to investigate this. We don't really want to know anything about it. We just want to regurgitate the old bullshit line, right? The Red Scare McCarthyism, essentially, so that we can stay on in line with the tribe, right? So that the Democrats and the Republicans can continue their game where they pretend to be opposed to one another, but they're actually not. And they say, both of them agree that these are authoritarian communist regimes, right? And that's how they tell each other that they're, buddies. The DSA includes advocates of both models, allowing hardliners within the group to pass off their own dogmatic and illiberal ideology as merely a more assertive version of progressivism. I mean, I wouldn't call it a more assertive version of progressivism. I would say that what we need is like a genuine communist revolution at this point. Like, we should be surrounding these people's houses. Like, that's an actual communist position, right? Like, for all the, like, throwing around of the buzzword communism, for all of that, like, getting in people's brains about, Donnie's a communist, and all the DSA is a communist, and all these guys are a communist, like, pretty much everything they've done, and likely everything they will do, is just basic centrist shit. Like, balance the budget, make sure people have access to basic resources, you know, pretty straightforward, like, pay people for jobs, create jobs, a jobs program, you know, not too much different than something like Roosevelt did. Big shocking stuff, though, if you're living in like a Nazi state and you're used to politicians just diddling kids. And because of this, people forget that, like, what an actual communist position is to take an armed force of men and overthrow the state completely. Like, that's an actual communist position. It would be like a lieutenant in the United States military grabbing a platoon of loyal people and walking in to the White House and saying, it's over. Like, it's finished. Right? And if you have enough support from your military, right, like what happened with Gaddafi in Libya is a great example of this. Like, Gaddafi was essentially, I think he was a lieutenant. I forget, maybe he was a captain. I forget where he was at. Maybe somebody can fact check me on this. But he basically just, like, grabbed a group of men, got the support of the military, walked into the king's throne room and said, we're finished here, right? Like, it's over. And the king was basically like, yeah. And that's how it went. Because the monarchy had lost its authority and lost its credibility. So Gaddafi was able to just walk in there. Right? That's what communists advocate for. Communists aren't advocating for piecemeal reformism through electoral politics. Because we don't believe that that's possible. We genuinely think that that's just a waste of time. That it's better to create alternative systems and alternative models that exist outside of the political system as it exists today. One of the less remarked upon adverse effects of the Trump presidency is the way in which it has radicalized the left. Yeah, Nazism often radicalizes the left, right? Giving license to bad actors, whoever they are, and bad ideas, whatever they might be. Near as I can tell, this guy's basically in favor of, like, corporate fascism. So he's like a corpo-fascist, essentially. Like, continue going to jobs you hate, to work for people you've never met, to enrich people who have never worked a day in their life. And that will somehow equal benefits for people. No one can actually tell me how that works. It'll trickle down, right? It'll trickle down at any moment. Fearful, and like, you know what's so funny about this article? I've really already said it, but this guy's talking as though he has credibility. Like, that's what's so funny about these guys, is that they're still writing and they're still talking as if their ideas haven't completely, utterly bottomed out. Like, there's no self-awareness at all in this guy. He has literally no self-awareness. He has no idea what's happening in his own society. All he knows is that he's writing an article so 10 people can read it and jerk him off. That's really what's going on here. Because his ideas have failed. His ideas are bad. He is a bad actor. He's essentially a propagandist for corporate power. That's all it is. And the idea that he should be writing from a position of authority and competence is laughably embarrassing. Like, hilarious. We should be pointing and ridiculing this guy to his face because he's so utterly stupid and clueless that to think that he should be able to condescendingly preach down to us as though he's an authority on these matters, instead of actually, like, trying to make an argument from a position of good faith, which he's not capable of because, I mean, he defends child rapists and thugs and goons, right? Genocidal maniacs. So, like, I don't really understand. It's shocking that this gets published, and what's even more shocking is that huge segments of the population read it and do anything other than, this is drivel, and, like, this is drivel. Like, it's just child vomit, right? Colonel Gaddafi. Thank you, guys. Colonel Gaddafi. Cody, good to see you. If such pusillanimity, who cares about this fucking, god damn it. Democrats risk losing the party to a band of true believers no less destructive than the furthest extremes of the MAGA movement. Yeah, because you guys are not as crazy as MAGA, right? Like, you guys don't have conspiracy brain. You don't believe in nonsense that gets perpetrated, right? Hillary lost the election because of Russia. Yeah, we all know. The DSA, founded in 1982 by the writer and activist Michael Harrington to achieve the left wing of the possible, served mainly as a discussion club until 2016, when Sanders' first presidential campaign inspired a groundswell of interest in socialism. I mean, it's sort of embarrassing that, like, hey, maybe we should use taxes to help people is like this weird radical idea to these people. The starkest divide between the DSA's older generation and the newcomers concerned their attitudes towards democracy. The DSA's founder drew a bright line between the democratic and authoritarian left, not least because socialists are typically among the first to be put against the wall whenever communists come to power. What? Like, what? Sorry. Not least because socialists are typically among the first to be put against the wall whenever communists come to power. When? Who? What group? Put against the wall. Like, that's true of Nazis. Communists do that with Nazis all the time. Who are these democratic socialists that communists have put against the wall? Yeah, the left is the same as Nazis, exactly. Just embarrassing. Like, are we ever going to actually have, like, a real meaningful discussion about any of this? Is that ever actually going to happen? The answer is obviously no, because these guys know they can't compete, right? They can't actually have a serious conversation. Oh, hey, here's how you know the DSA is a complete and total success, right? Founded in 1982 by the writer and activist Michael Harrington, a staunch anti-communist and a Zionist, Harrington had no difficulty condemning the human rights abuses perpetrated by left-wing regime and Islamic terror group. Wow, what a serious party that's definitely going to... Founded by, like, literally an anti-communist and a Zionist. Perfect. Ugh. To the DSA's growing ranks of young members, however, Harrington's anti-communism and Zionism were imperialist, reactionary relics of the Cold War. Yeah. Like, if you're anti-communist, like... it's like that classic, like, if you're anti-fascist, what are you? And, like, sorry, man, like, the moment you stand up and say that you're a Zionist, it's over for you. Like, just throw up the arm. Just do the Zig Heil already. Maurice Iserman, a founding member of the DSA, has written that by around 2019, Harringtonite Harringtonite, I got it, was becoming a term of abuse within the organization. Yeah, because he's a fucking Nazi, right? He's a Zionist. It's like the classic manufactured dissent, right? It's the manufactured, it's the controlled dissent, right? Get a Zionist to be the leader of the far left party, right? Have a Zionist to be the leader of the opposition. As the DSA's national profile has risen, the group has drawn new members for whom the democratic in democratic socialism is not a core value, but an obstacle, which is why they're working within the Democratic Party and trying to get elected, right? Outside activists who abide by the Leninist principle of democratic centralism, in which rank and file must unquestionably carry out political decisions made by party elite, gained entry into the DSA. The group became a sort of magnet for people who had a different sort of sectarian view of what the left should be. Leo Cassie, another founding DSA member, Zionist, told me, before the DSA became a perpetrator of entryism, it was the victim of it. So, like, literally you're telling me a story about how, like, a Nazi created a fake left organization within the Democratic Party, and then actual voters and actual young people were like, no, we don't want any of that bullshit. We're taking this over. And you're looking at that and going, wow, what a bad thing. And somehow you're trying to frame that as anti-democratic. That's my favorite, right? You're like, we don't like bad ideas, like being against Zionism. Like, what's up? What's up? Yeah, 2 negatives make a positive. Cody writes, definitely no serious conversations here. I mean, how do you take this seriously? It's just getting cartoonish. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it's getting cartoonish. Shit's cartoonish. Like, this whole thing is just like cartoon characters. And nobody's acting seriously. Like, nobody's saying anything serious anymore. Like, I haven't read an article that says, hey, we should arrest the oil executives, which we definitely should do. Like, I just don't see that shit. That's not a real thing. We're literally choking on wildfire smoke. Totally cool. Everything's fine. Cool and normal. Then came October 7th. The moment the Palestinians actually fought back against their oppression, right? The DSA had officially repudiated its Zionist past in 2017 when it endorsed the boycott, divest, and sanctions movement against Israel. But even this hostile move, so this guy is just a Nazi, right? Did not prepare the DSA's older membership for the virulent anti-Semitism. Yeah, being against a genocide makes you an anti-Semite. That would pour forth from the group after it's the worst mass murder of Jews since the Holocaust. The DSA released a statement expressing our solidarity with Palestine, with no mention of Hamas, the terrorist outfit that had perpetrated the massacre, right? How dare they fight back? The following day, the New York City chapter endorsed a pro-Hamas rally in Times Square. How dare they fight back? The rally that the future Democratic congressional nominee Chevalier attended, right? How dare they fight back? The group's embrace of terrorist violence proved too much for some members. Yeah, this author prefers genocidal violence, right? Systemic violence, totally fine. Fighting back against systemic violence, that's a problem. They should just do what they're told while we murder their children. The rally that the future Democratic congressional nominee, blah, 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 Sunday's hate-filled and anti-Semitic rally in New York City, promoted by the NYC DSA, makes it impossible for me to continue my affiliation. Representative Shri Thanadir of Michigan, a Democrat, said in a statement, for this heresy, right, the heresy of being a Zionist, right? You fucking weirdo. Like, you creepy weirdo. What's this guy's name again? It's like Creepy McCreeperpants. James Kirchick. Hey, James, you're a creepy weirdo. Like, you're just a creepy weirdo. It's really creepy and weird that you're getting published in the Atlantic. Like, it's really creepy and weird that anybody who is a Zionist is still being taken seriously anywhere. Like, that's what makes this whole thing creepy. Like, for the heresy of being a Zionist. Yeah, losing an election should be the, like, least of their concerns. Like, if I had political power, I would lock these people in jail. Right? Endorsing an ethno-state and a genocide is not a free speech issue. Right? Like, if somebody was walking around talking about how they were looking forward to organize a gang rape on your daughter, you'd be like, yeah, we should probably stop that. But if you do it to an entire nation, that's completely fine. In Los Angeles, City Council member Nithya Raman, a DSA member, said the organization's statement failed to reckon with the horrors committed by Hamas and was devoid of empathy. How dare they fight back? When she later accepted support from a local pro-Israel organization, the DSA's Los Angeles chapter censored her. Yeah, good, great, perfect. Throw her out, noting that its elected officials are expected to co-govern with the chapter. And it continues to withhold its endorsement in her challenge to Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass. Yeah, don't support Zionists. Like, what are you doing? Like, look how James is just kind of normalized the idea that Israel isn't a fascist Nazi state, right? That the entire perspective of the article is that Nazism is good, in fact, right? And that we should be defending Nazis. It's just like the least serious position a person can take. And again, he's writing from this position of like, I have credibility. No, you don't. You're a creepy weirdo, right? All you're doing is confirming that which we already know and understand and believe. But you guys are creepy weirdos. To win an endorsement from the New York City DSA, prospective candidates must pass through a rigorous vetting process, right? So which is it? Right? Is it a democratic process or isn't it? Right? Is it a rigorous process or is it just people hand selecting people? Like what? Hopefuls must appear before multiple committees to ensure they're sufficiently simpatico with DSA diktats. Yeah, because none of that ever happens in the Democratic Party, right? They don't do exactly the same thing. Those who receive the DSA's red rose of approval, I love it, bringing in like the Bachelorette. I guess you got to speak to your audience, right? Are subject to draconian ideological monitoring. Like, sorry. Those who receive the DSA's red rose of approval are subject to draconian ideological monitoring. Yeah, they want to know what you're up to. Like literally every political organization that's ever existed. I love how these guys do this. How they talk about like these political organizations as if it's special. Like literally every political organization does this. What are you talking about? In 2024, the group's National Political Committee revoked its endorsement of Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, then its most famous member, over her support for the Iron Dome missile defense system in Israel and sponsorship of an event with a Jewish organization focused on combating anti-Semitism. You're just making me like the DSA more, dude. Like, you're literally like, oh, they like bailed on their most popular member, the person people knew the most, because she aligned herself with Zionists. Wow, they have principles. Oh, damn, they've got principles. Oh, okay. An article in the group's official publication complained that she was committed to the Democratic Party, not the DSA. Yeah, I'd say that's true. And a faction demanded that she be censored for her tacit support of Zionism, her endorsement of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and in a Stalinist flourish, her inadequate political discipline. You don't know anything about Stalinism, dude. You don't know anything about Stalin. I love it, man. These guys, like, they just use these words. Like, this guy doesn't know anything about Stalin. Everything that comes out of this guy's mouth in regard to Stalin is going to be bullshit. Right? Because he's just a clueless Zionist. The trouble with socialism, according to an old joke often misattributed to Oscar Wilde, is that it takes up too many evenings. Got us. Got him. The DSA's supporters and critics both agree that its members devote enormous time and energy to on-the-ground organizing. Yeah, it's called politics. Representative Tom Suozzi, a moderate Democrat from Long Island, lamented to me that people who oppose the DSA are at cocktail parties wringing their hands while they're out there organizing. Right. It's called politics. For this reason, among others, some Democrats see DSA members as potential allies. DSA members are doing the one thing Democrats can barely do anymore, especially at the local level, which is organize. Yeah, because nobody wants to organize with you fucking fascists anymore. Like, you're such goddamn losers. Like, the real fascists, people are going to go work with in the Republican Party. This like on the fence fascism that comes out of the Democratic Party. In this view, the DSA is a resource that should be integrated into the Democratic Party with all the ideological compromises such as merger would necessitate. Yeah, put them in the Democratic Party and let them die there. Right? That's the real strategy, is to integrate them into the Democratic Party and turn them into a graveyard. Right? The real talk. You see, no Democrat is ever at a cocktail party. Yeah. Many senior Democrats are thinking along the same lines. Jeffries has refrained from criticizing the new DSA congressional nominees, despite their conspicuous refusal to endorse him for the speakership. Axios recently reported that Harris, eyeing another run for the presidency, had called Mamdani to talk about the party's future. Other Democrats see more clearly with what's wrong with accommodating the DSA. Ugh, how much more of this? We're almost there. This guy's gross, right? It's just gross. It's gross to hear. It's gross to just like listen to the ramblings of a very clear Nazi. Somebody who's just like, a genocide against the Palestinian people is just business as usual, right? That's just status quo politics. Emmanuel told me that although the Democrats are a coalition, the coalition doesn't include room for people who believe America is a country wrong at every level. I mean, America is a country wrong at every level. Like it is. It just fundamentally is. Representative Josh Gothamer of New Jersey, a prominent moderate Democrat and a vocal DSA critic, likened his party situation to that of the GOP more than a decade ago. I see this as our Tea Party/Freedom Caucus moment, he told me, with the Democratic Party staring down a movement interested in bomb throwing, not problem solving. See, the problem with that statement is that the problems the Democratic Party is trying to solve is how do we have sex with children? Like, those are the problems that you're actually trying to solve. The Democratic Party isn't trying to solve problems like how do we make sure everybody has access to health care, right? How do we make sure people have access to resources? The problem that the Democratic Party is trying to solve is how many children can we fuck this year? Those are the problems that the Democratic Party are trying to solve. Sowing chaos, not finding solutions. Yeah, like if you think people coming in to stop you having like pedophile parties, yeah, that's chaos, right? Last month, Sozi and Representative Adam Gray of California released an open letter that proclaims, "We are capitalist, not socialist. We want safety, not lawlessness. We are proud, not ashamed of America." As of this writing, only 8 other members of Congress have signed this pledge. Yeah, because it's embarrassing, right? It's just embarrassing from just a strictly like basic reason perspective. Just a straight up like basic academic position, right? Like, we are capitalist, not socialist. Okay, that's there's nothing inherently ridiculous about that, although being a capitalist at this point is just so embarrassing. We want safety, not lawlessness. Like, shut up, man. Like, it's so embarrassing. You sound like a clown. We are proud, not ashamed of America. It's like, yikes. Maybe have some humility, right? Maybe it's time to humble up. Like, I've said it already a couple of times. You guys have lost twice to Donald Trump, right? Like, you lost twice to Donald Trump. Maybe it's time to humble up a little bit. Maybe it's time to be like, we keep losing to like an orange-faced clown whose only real achievement in life is putting his name on the side of a building and having a game show. Like, it's like you guys are losing elections to Bob Barker if Bob Barker was mean, right? It's like Negaverse Bob Barker you guys are losing elections to, and you still think we should listen to what you have to say. It's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. Democrats can look across the aisle to see what a vigorous contest for the soul of a major political party looks like. Given how slavishly the GOP has fallen into line behind Trump, it's hard to remember the ferocity of the ideological battles that took place within the conservative movement while he was attempting a hostile takeover of that party in 2015 and 16. You guys lost to him. Like, the The conservative activist and intellectual space was galvanized by debates over Trump, what he represented, and a whopping 16 other candidates competed against Trump for his party's nomination. One of those contenders, former Texas Governor Rick Perry, called Trump's campaign a cancer on conservatism. And another, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, told delegates to vote your conscience at the Republican convention. Senator Lindsey Graham called Trump race-baiting, xenophobic, religious bigot who should go to hell. You lost to him. Like, you lost. Thus far, the American left is not having any significant debate on the disturbing rise of the DSA. Yeah, because it's clowns like you. Because anytime anybody stands up to debate it, it's illiterate, moronic idiots like you standing up and saying this just trash. Just this, that's Stalinist. Yeah, I don't know who Stalin really is, but everybody reacts nicely to it when I say it. Democrats will need to reach back into their own history, to the early years of the Cold War, when liberal titans such as Arthur Schlesinger Jr. sought to purge the Democratic Party of communist influence, literally just calling for a McCarthy purge in the Democratic Party, right? So this is straight up just like a Nazi masquerading as a Democrat in order to do a McCarthy-style purge in the Democratic Party. That's really what this is. They will need to understand that the DSA is not, as some Democrats once affectionately described communists, a collection of well-intentioned, if naive, liberals in a hurry, but an illiberal vanguard. Yeah, that's what communists are. So the first correct thing that you've said the entire time. Yes, communists are an illiberal vanguard. That's true. Establishment figures such as Jeffrey and the party's 2028 presidential candidates will need to grasp that the relationship between the DSA and the Democratic Party is not one of occasional bickering siblings, but of parasite and host. I mean, once again, describe capitalism, describe capitalism, call it socialism, right? Democrats have spent the Trump era telling the American people that they're the only political force capable of defending the country from authoritarianism. Whatever that is. The argument will be impossible to maintain if they countenance an organization that honors the legacy of the convicted cop killer Assata Shakur and calls for solidarity with North Korea. Yeah, we should have solidarity with North Korea, by the way. But criticizing the DSA will only go so far. When David Duke was the Republican candidate for... This is going to be good. Hold on, guys. JT, good to see you. Let's all get ready for this. We're bringing up David Duke. This is going to be so good. We're in the final two paragraphs. And right now, this guy is like, when David Duke... leader of the Ku Klux Klan. I think Bill Burr's observation, by the way, that the Black Panthers were smashed, but the Ku Klux Klan was allowed to exist. It's a pretty good observation. Pretty interesting. Like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Okay, here we go. Brace for impact. When David Duke was the Republican candidate for governor in Louisiana in 1991, prominent Republicans, including the president, George H.W. Bush, condemned the former Grand Wizard of the Ku Klux Klan. Some explicitly backed his Democratic opponent, the legendarily corrupt Edwin Edwards. Although the GOP certainly had a moral obligation to distance itself from a hate monger, doing so was also in the party's self-interest. Democrats, whose brand is viewed as too left-wing in 5 out of 6 Senate background states, should be similarly wary of fanatics trying to infiltrate their ranks. So, what James Kirchick is arguing is that people who want children to have access to food and shelter are the same as white supremacy and white supremacists. Well done, James. Absolutely fantastic job, my man. We stand against the genocide in Gaza and condemn Zionists. Well, that's the same as the Ku Klux Klan. What a winner this guy is. Open letters aren't enough. If the Democrats want to root out the party within their party, they will need to stop indulging the DSA's constant passive-aggressive attempts to undermine them. This would require prohibiting DSA members from joining their party and throwing out the DSA members already honeycombed within it. Right, a McCarthy-style purge. That's what you're describing. 4 decades ago, Labour's Neil Kinnock expelled the extremist faction burrowing within his beloved party. Yeah, and what happened? You guys launched a pointless war and bankrupted your country. Like, I don't know why you think that's a success. If Democrats want to rescue their party, they may need to do the same. What a, just like... James Kirchick is the author of Secret City, The Hidden History of Gay Washington. What a loser this guy is. Grand Designs Enjoyer. Hello. Hi. It's very strange that you don't see why offering support for Alberta's independence is the right thing to do. I mean, offering support for Alberta's independence is the right thing to do. Because it would be both a disaster for Canada and the people of Alberta. That would really only benefit a small group of oil executives and investors who have proven time and time again that they are more than willing to destroy any nation if it means they can make a little bit more money. That's why I think supporting Alberta's independence is a bad idea, because it would be a disaster. Yeah, what a wonderful article. He's like the complete opposite of Chris Hedges. Yeah, that's a good... Grand Designs Enjoyer. Why are DSA's major activist projects happen to be funded by Qatar, Rockefeller for Fund, the Soros Open Society Foundation? Yeah, I don't know anything about that. Like, I'm not a democratic socialist. Like, I'm not really into that party, mainly because I just think that, like, the actual criticism that I would have for the DSA, if I was actually, like, competent, unlike this James Kirkfield guy, is like the Democratic Party will just absorb it and just kill it. That's what they do to political organizations. They don't need to do a big purge. Like, that's what makes the article so clownish and, like, super overwhelmingly hysterical. Like, this guy's in a state of hysterics, right? And he's in a state of hysterics because the Democratic Party apparatus is very skillful at taking these sorts of organizations and these sorts of movements and killing them. Right? That's what the Democratic Party really exists to do. It's a graveyard for leftist organizations. That's why the DSA will not be successful, right? And and like, if I were to find out that, like, they're funded by Qatar and the Rockefeller or the or any of these kind of, I'd be like, yeah, that's probably true, because the goal of a lot of these organizations and a lot of billionaires and a lot of capitalists is to create an edifice that gives the appearance of leftist ideas, but really exists to kill the left, right? Just to be a graveyard for the left. And that's the point of the Democratic Party. Like, we don't need some, like, hysteria about, like, we've got to purge these people. Like, actually, I think that purging them from the Democratic Party would be a terrible idea. Like, that's a terrible strategic idea. Like, if you purge them from the party, then they might actually create a third party, right? They might actually go off, and, like, a faction of them might actually go off and become a more effective political organization. By keeping them in the Democratic Party, you render them completely inert, right? The Democratic Party is completely facile. It's completely subservient to the will of the superdelegates. There's no, like, you're not going to see a big, major change come out of them because of it. Grand Designs Enjoyer writes, the DSA endorsed Mamdani, was advised by Patrick Gaspard, the former president of the Soros Foundation. I don't really have the hate on for Soros that lots of people do. Like, I don't care. So what? And honestly, I find a lot of the stuff surrounding Soros to basically come down to, like, he's a Jew. Kind of has that sort of vibe about it. It's like, okay, so there's a billionaire funding them. Okay, that's not a surprise. Like, I don't really get it. Like, I don't really understand why it's like, oh no, like people shake Soros at me like I'm supposed to be like, oh, Soros, oh, and it's like, anytime I've looked into this guy, it's like, yeah, he's just a billionaire who's like politically active. Like, what's the conspiracy here? Like, what's the big scary thing? And like, you're just kind of confirming what I am basically already saying, which is that the DSA is not is not going to be a effective political force, right? That it's going to be very similar to like Obama Hope and Change, right? Like, that's the real truth of it. And I think, like, what's really interesting, and it is really interesting, is that the millennials are now getting to be middle-aged and the boomers are starting to die. So the political outlook of the populace is shifting. And the response, people are expecting a real response to Donald Trump. Like, people are expecting a real grown-up response, right? Like an actual response. Not pandering, not hope and change and then bail out the billionaires. Like, not that kind of stuff. Like, we really are at a point where people are like, so when the Democrats take power, we're going to get like a full tribunal, right? We're going to round a lot of these people up and we're going to have like real trials, right? And like, no, that's not going to happen, because the Democrats and the Republicans are allies. They work together. And your points that you're making, like, they can be true. That's completely fine. But all you're really doing is saying, look, Jonathan, Democrats and Republicans are allies. It's like, I know, my man. Like, I know. They're allies. They work together. They work together to achieve collective goals. That the purpose of the Democratic Party is to present this like progressive, reasonable like face of the Nazi, right? It's the smiling Nazi. It's just good cop, bad cop. That's all it is. And like, you don't need to dig that deep to see that that's true. It's just, it's a system that feeds on humans' tribalism, our desire to pick a side, to be part of a team, right? That, and you can see this constantly in the political discourse, right? There's a ton of political discourse that still to this day is just like, oh, well, the Democrats are better than the Republicans. Yeah, we vote blue no matter who, because the Democrats are better than the Republicans. It's like, yeah, the Democrats are better than the Republicans by design. That's the way it's structurally designed. It's supposed to be that way on purpose. That's how it's structured. You're supposed to have one group that fuels that fans the fuels of hate and lets the populace vent out its hatred into the world, and then you're supposed to have the party that offers the bomb, right? This creates the cycle. Yeah, the consistent cycle. Yeah, very consistent. Like, that's the point. And it's supposed to be, and the only time that cycle is interrupted is when people surround the houses of the powerful. That's really the only time meaningful change happens in America. So, like, I'm not like, really the reason why I read this article was to show how clownish the discourse has become and how see-through it is. Like, it's so see-through, it's so transparent. Like, it's so obvious that the guy is stupid and that he's essentially like a propagandist for like a pro-Zionist, like neo-Nazi group. He doesn't give a fuck about the future of America. He doesn't care about the Democratic Party. Like, he's not actually even a political strategist or analysis. Like the point of the article was an attempt to make the argument that they should do a McCarthy-style purge of the Democratic Party. And my argument, if I'm a capitalist, like if I'm Warren Buffett, right, or Elon Musk, the absolute last thing I would want to see is like a McCarthy-style purge of the DSA. It's absolutely the last thing I'd like to see, right? Because you've got them exactly where you want them. You've got them under your thumb. Oh, this is interesting. Soros's foundation is now run by Alex Soros, who considers Nazi Andriy Yermak his friend. Yermak served as Ukraine's co-president until recently, along with Zelensky. Yeah, I'd believe you. I believe you. Like, for sure. Oh, goodness. JT writes, these recent DSA wins are going to have people saying, now, especially, we can't abandon the Dem Party. The years will go by quick, and we don't have the time. Yeah, and anytime there's a crisis, like, let's say the DSA takes any kind of significant political power, right? But anytime that there's a political crisis, right, just like Obama, right, the members of the DSA will bend to power, and they will go along, like, just like Alexandria, just like AOC, right? That she was a member of the DSA, and then she bent the knee to Israel, right? She didn't stand against it. The first opportunity she got, she bent the knee to Israel. And, like, well, you think these guys are going to be any different? That, like, the Democratic Party is a graveyard of the left for a reason. It exists structurally to do that. That's its job. And that's why I think engaging in a debate between which is better, the Republicans and the Democrats, just completely misses the point. Totally. It just totally misses the point. It's like when guys come in here and are like, Trump, like, it's like, you're the dumbest person alive. Like, there's just nobody dumber than you. And, like, the vote blue no matter who crowd, I'm just like, you are just as dumb. It's like genuinely believing that the outcome between Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan matters. It's like genuinely believing that, like, whoa, the Hulkster slammed Andre and pinned him. The world is a better place. It's like believing that. Like, no. The electoral system in America exists pretty much exclusively to give the illusion of democratic practice so that people don't organize along alternative lines. That they'll just spend all their energy doing this, funneling it into this very clear dead end, in which the choice is a managed fascism with a slow, steady decline downward, or just fascism. And those are your only two choices. You really get to choose between, like, corporate fascists or just oligarchs, and those are your options. And when the oligarchs take power and smash everything and make everything worse, they act so horribly and so ghoulishly that most people are finally like, oh, anything would be better than this, and so what's anything? The Democratic Party. And so they vote for the Democratic Party. And then the Democratic Party is just as ghoulish, just as horrific, just as horrifying. They're just better managers, right? They sound better, they speak better, they have better arguments, They understand that they actually do need to have arguments, right? Like that they are better at PR. They're better communicators. But the outcome is exactly identical. It's exactly the same, right? You still end up with your pointless wars that never end. You still end up with your expansive domestic terror campaigns via ICE. You still end up with concentration camps. Like, you still end up with a rising poverty rate, rising homelessness rate. You still end up with all the same things, right? Because the parties are identical in their goals. It's just one wears an iron gauntlet and one has a silk glove. That's it. Eleni, good to see you. Watch streak reached by Eleni. Eleni is currently on a 3-stream streak. Wow. I'm sure there are some of you who are on more than a 3-stream streak. I just don't have any of that set up on YouTube. Maybe I should. Who knows? That could be kind of fun. I do want to circle back around to talk about, because Grand Designs, you said, and I don't know if you're serious or not, but like an actual independence movement that would actually like Albertan independence. Like, Albertan independence would be a disaster for Alberta. It would be a huge, massive disaster for Alberta. Specifically the people of Alberta, right? Like, I don't care about the edifice of Alberta. Like, the number one reason why it would be a total disaster for Alberta is that Alberta's a landlocked province. And they rely really heavily on national infrastructure that exists across Canada. The grievances that the Albertans usually bring up are kind of like the standard boilerplate, like prairie provinces versus Ontario stuff that's always existed in Canadian politics. So none of it is very surprising. But very clearly, like, the reason why there's the Alberta separatist movement is because oil interests and resource conglomerates want to get access to Alberta's resource base, and they don't want to go through the Canadian government. That's just standard boilerplate kind of stuff. It's the same. They're doing the same thing that they do all over the world, right? They're finding far right radicals within the political system who are willing to betray their nation for personal profit, and they're supporting them. It's exactly the same story that we've seen across the globe over and over and over and over and over again. And if it doesn't work electorally, they'll start to push on it militarily. That's the trajectory. That's what happened in Ukraine, right? That's what they're trying to do in Taiwan. It's what they did in Myanmar. It's like, it's pretty boilerplate stuff. It's what they did in Libya, right? It's very boilerplate stuff. So I think that this independence movement drive that's happening in Alberta is really bad news for the people of Alberta. And if the people of Alberta go for it, I think that they'll just be a bunch of suckers. Like, really. It'll be nothing but a problem for everybody involved. Eleni says, I think part of the Trump voters vote for Trump because they knew he would fuck up and force change. I mean, I think it really boils down to Obama was elected on a message of hope and change. Right? Nothing changed. And so people were like, no, we meant it. Like, we meant it. And the Democratic Party didn't really allow a progressive vision of change to be on the ballot, right? Which is their point. That's the reason the Democratic Party exists, is to prevent that very thing. To Real Talk, yeah, the Color Revolution playbook pretty much goes all the way back to Hungary in 1956, probably even further. You can't go too much further back because then you're getting into like before the CIA even existed. I'm sure that there were other organizations that were doing similar things, but the CIA is like a really interesting organization because it's like it's an organization that specifically exists in order to do that very that kind of stuff, right? Like it's not technically it's what they call it, an intelligence organization, although I don't see much intelligence going on. So, and it's like an interesting thing is happening where the global south has finally wised up. It's getting really, really difficult for the CIA to be successful. They used to actually have a pretty good success rate in with their plans. Now they like I think it was last year or the year before, they attempted 5 overthrows and 5 revolutions, and it was only successful twice. So they're starting to see a declining average. They're starting to lose out. And I think it's just coming down to people in the global south, especially since Libya, I think, are just wised up to it. They're just like, oh yeah, the CIA is getting involved in this. Like, it really did used to be the case that if you were saying things like the CIA is out to get me, like the CIA has a plan, people were like, man, what a paranoid idea is that? And then what happened to those guys, right? Like Allende, they get overthrown, right? And now the leaders of these countries are like, okay, the CIA is out to get us, and everybody around them, including the citizens, are like, we agree, correct. So, like, who's the CIA? Where's the CIA angle? Where's the CIA coming in on this, right? So there's a lot more awareness. But the interesting thing is that now that there's this declining success in the global south for coups and overthrows and color revolutions and all that kind of stuff, and now that there's a stronger counterbalance, right? Because China is a counterbalance. Now the CIA and the NSA are starting to move against former allies, right? Ukraine was a big moment. I think people really shouldn't underestimate how huge a moment that must be internally from the power system, because now they're no longer doing it to people in the global south. Now they're doing it to white countries too. And so all of that kind of disbelief that existed in that kind of naivety that existed in the global south for a period of time until the modern period, it exists right now in the white nations, right? Like, the reason why most people cannot believe that what happened in Ukraine was a CIA-backed overthrow and a coup is because Ukraine is a white nation, and that really is it. Like, that's fundamentally the backbone of it. That if what happened in Ukraine happened in any African nation, any Latin American nation, any Southeast Asian nation, any Middle Eastern nation, right? If it happened anywhere else in the world, people would be like, yeah, that's the CIA for you. Yep, they did that, right? But because it happened in a white nation, people are like, oh, what a kooky conspiracy. They wouldn't do the thing that they've been doing for 40 years, right? They wouldn't do that. 40 years, Jesus, more like 60 at this point. And so very clearly they're trying to do the same thing in Canada. Like, this Canada is the 51st state rhetoric? Yeah, what, you think they're going to launch a full-scale invasion as their first gambit? No. It's divide and conquer. It's color revolutions. It's taking over province by province if they can, right? It's getting their own people involved. It's getting their own newspapers, their own propaganda systems involved, right? Just a slow, steady chip away. Donald Trump has just removed the mask on everything. He's just like, yeah, we're taking you over. We're trying to. We're going to, right? Yaystack, good to see you. Fiddleford, good to see you too. Ditto. Based Maoist Trump destroying America. Yeah. I love that kind of stuff. Maoist Trump. It's so funny to think about. It is funny to think about that he's like doing it all intentionally, right? That like the overthrow of America. Jacob, the Blue Democrat. Good to see you, my man. Jacob, I gotta say, my man, like I really value that you keep coming back because boy, do I ever rip on Democrats on this channel. Boy, do I ever rip on Democrats on this channel, my man. And so I really admire your stick-to-itiveness, I guess. I'm impressed that I haven't like offended you away. What's a good communist book for me to read aside from Marx's classics? Okay. Find a here. Let's just put it up on the screen. Let's just put it up on the screen. Go find. Move your tabs to the side. Go it. Richard Wolff. This guy right here, Richard D. Wolff. He's got a bunch of stuff on YouTube. Strongly advise. He's got a book called Socialism for Dummies. He's a American Marxist economist. He works at the University of Massachusetts, right? He has a degree from, I believe it's Stanford and Princeton. He tells some really interesting stories internally. The really interesting story that he tells about his about getting 2 PhDs through the American education system was that at no point was he ever directed to read Marx in his education as an economist. And it's just like, oh, okay. So American economists are illiterate. They do not know what economics is. And that's on purpose, right? Because economics departments in America are priesthoods. They're not scientific. They're for priests. They're building a papacy basically. Oh yeah, great. Jacob the Blue. I love his commentaries. I also recommend Michael Parenti. God rest his soul. Michael Parenti. Michael Parenti. His book Black Shirts in Red. Michael Parenti is the guy. Michael Parenti is the guy who really took this idea that like the classic line, communism never works, right? And basically academically showed that it absolutely does. That this statement, communism never works, is something that that he sticks his thumb in and basically systematically disproves. His lectures, there's a very famous lecture on YouTube, the Yellow Parenti, and it's called the Yellow Parenti because it's very like yellow and very. He's also written some interesting stuff on Julius Caesar. His observations on Julius Caesar's transitioning the Roman Empire from a slave society to a feudal society is interesting. I think Michael Parenti essentially acts as a foil to Noam Chomsky. And that now we see that Noam Chomsky is a friend of Jeffrey Epstein. We see that chances are good that Chomsky exists to provide a leftist argument that is also anti-communist. And that's why he's elevated and put in front of us. That's why we have manufacturing consent, while Michael Parenti is writing similar books, but from a pro-communist perspective. Have you heard of Finbol? I feel like I have. Hold on. Finbol. I assume this isn't what you're talking about. I'm going to need more than this, my man. I also think that what often gets overlooked in the classic writings is Frederick Engels' The Principles of Communism. People often focus on the manifesto. People often focus on the manifesto pretty exclusively. Or you'll see right, the Communist Manifesto or the oh no. The big one. Oh no. Karl Marx. Das Kapital. Oh my god. The Principles of Communism, like, it's very short. Like, this is the whole thing. I just scrolled through the entire thing right here. Right? And as you can see, most of it is just, what is communism? Communism is the doctrine of the conditions of the liberation of the proletariat. Right? The Communist Manifesto is more of a dictionary than an actual way to, like, do communism. It is like a statement of principles. The Communist Manifesto is like, it's like listening to a speech from the past, right? A lot of it you listen to and you're like, there's like lots of references in the Communist Manifesto that you're like, oh, this is in reference to something that's happening currently in the day that doesn't really have much bearing to do with what's going on now. And Marx was pretty aware of that in regards to the Communist Manifesto, which is why I direct people more specifically to the Principles of Communism, because the Principles of Communism are a little bit more universal. Direct Luminosity says, never go to Das Kapital. You'll learn communism. I don't know why so many communists say read Das Kapital. Well, Das Kapital is important, but it's like, you're not wrong. I would argue that the Principles of Communism is absolutely required reading, not just because it's so short, but because it encapsulates the ideas so concisely and so specifically. It really opens the door to begin the conversation in a very easy way. But if you want to understand economics, right? Like, if you really are interested in, like, the field of economics, then you have to read Das Kapital, for sure. But I don't think it's necessary to read Das Kapital to get a hold of what the Principles of Communism actually are, because Das Kapital is it's an economics tome. It's drawing from the works of Adam Smith and Ricard and finding and applying what they discovered and re-arguing it from a Hegelian perspective. Yeah, don't try to read Capital unless you're at the intermediate advanced level. Marx also makes it more confusing than it needs to be. Yeah, it is because I think Marx was pursuing specificity, and it's tough. A field like economics, like, it's not like math, right? Like, economics has a human element and a human component, and the moment you introduce that human component, you're just kind of, oh dear. I've been learning Juche. Yeah, I don't actually know much about Juche. I know it's working for the North Koreans, so God bless them. Off they go. One of the things that I'm consistently grateful for from the Chinese was their statement that there is no one true communism, that every nation will come to communism through its own path. And boy howdy, I think that's a real godsend. I think that just alleviates so much tension between communist nations and between Marxist-Leninist nations. That it allows for genuine and real conversation about material conditions, and while avoiding dogmatism. I think dogmatism is really, really killing us. Here in the West, it's for sure killing us. Fiddleford writes, Marx was very well studied, and if he did not exist, another person would have brought to light what Marx did. Das Kapital is a criticism. It bolsters our ability to criticize the economic mismanagement. Yes, I think that's true. I mean, to me, the big reason why you should really read Das Kapital is to get a really strong understanding that there are two prevailing economic theories. I've said this a lot on this channel, and I'll continue saying it, that really what we're seeing in today's modern world is a conflict between two competing theories of economics. Like, if I wanted to be as generous as possible to the West, right? If I really wanted to be generous, I would make the argument that the West moved forward on an economic theory of financialization, right? This is an economic theory that Adam Smith himself identified and lamented, that he was deeply concerned that that capital owners in Western nations would take their manufacturing centers and ship them to other nations in pursuit of cheap labor. And the reason why he thought it wouldn't happen is because of what he called home bias, right? Because he understood from an economics perspective that what you're doing is impoverishing your nation, right? But the American idea, right, the Western idea, when they do that, is that that's okay to do because it just means a smaller group will get wealthy first, and then that wealth will trickle down into the society. That was the argument that they used. It doesn't happen, right? And because it doesn't happen, and so what actually happens, right, is that you end up with a small group of billionaires and a fucking trillionaire, right, who basically provide no value whatsoever to the society. And the entire society needs to radically reform itself to try to gain access to the financial resource, money, in order to gain access to resources like food and shelter, right? Meanwhile, the societies that actually have the means of production, right, flourish because they're actually generating real wealth. And so the two economic theories, the West's theory of financialization, that power emanates from finance, from banks, from the dollar, from money, right, is going up against the Marxist-Leninist theory that exists in China, which is that power emanates from the means of production, the ability to create things. And we're seeing, and of course, when you are running on a Marxist-Leninist lens, you still understand that financial power is a type of power, and it has power, but it isn't the center of power. And we're basically seeing that play out, that financial systems will inevitably consume everything for money, right? If your statement is we should destroy the air, the water, people's health care, the quality of life of all the citizens so that we can get money, like if that's your statement, well, then your system's destined to fail and it's going to collapse. Whereas if your system is, yeah, money exists, but it doesn't supersede people's well-being and our ability to create a better quality of life for everyone, then you're going to be much more successful. And Das Kapital, I mean, to me, Fiddleford writes, after reading Das Kapital, you will find yourself criticizing capitalists at their own game. I mean, I think the big thing about reading Adam Smith, and I haven't read any Ricard, but I should, because he's in the lineage. The big thing about reading even Adam Smith, like forget about Marx, just read Adam Smith, is that you'll realize really fast that a lot of the people who are involved in this process are fundamentally illiterate. Like, it wasn't that long ago that there were people in the halls of power talking about how, like, we need to let the free market decide, right? The invisible hand of the free market, the invisible hand of the free market, the invisible hand of the free market. They would just say it over and over again. Adam Smith, the only time he ever referenced the invisible hand of the free market was as a pejorative, was as a negative. He said that if you allowed unfettered capitalism to take over your nation, it would wreck your nation, as if an invisible hand had gone through it. Like, it's a revolutionary force to the negative. And so it's pretty clear that these guys never read it. Like, they just don't read the people that are, and then they tell you that you need to read economics. It's crazy. Grand Design Enjoiner is writing a bit of a tome over here. What are you writing, bud? What I like about you, Grand Designs Enjoyer, is that I can tell that you don't necessarily agree with my perspective, but you're not rude. That's always been the thing, is that you're not rude and you're not, I don't think you're irrational. Oh, geez, you're really, really writing. Read Alexander Bergson's work on the Russian tragedy, the Bolshevik myth, the concept of, so tell me why you strip a person of the means to be generous on their own terms when you make sufficiency itself a suspicious excess, when you... I don't really understand what you're writing here, dude. Like, it seems like you're kind of writing a cartoon, like, anti-communist screed that doesn't really relate to reality in any meaningful way. Like, I'm going to read this, and you're going to... When you strip a person of the means to be generous on their own terms, I don't understand what you're talking about, but when you make sufficiency itself a suspicious excess, okay, when you reduce every human being to the bare minimum of need, what exactly have you built? Not a community, a ward, and wards do not help one another, they wait. Charity stripped of sacrifice is theater. I mean, not to the people receiving it. Charity that costs the giver nothing is a line item on the government ledger, anonymous and empty. I mean, not to the person receiving it. But charity that flows from an individual who chose freely from his own surplus to lift another from crisis, that is the act that makes a human being feel alive. That is the engine of genuine community, not shared poverty enforced by decree, but autonomous individuals bound together by the freely given abundance they have earned the right to share. This is just individual worship. Like, that's all this is. This is kind of just like a religious screed, right? The system which you advocate does not liberate the giver, it disarms him. It confiscates the very surplus that would have become someone's salvation, routes it through the machinery of bureaucracy, and returns it diminished, stripped of dignity that only voluntary giving can bestow. So, nice religious screed. Like, that's very clearly individual worship, kind of a self-worshipping screed. Yeah, capitalism, Bible verses, really. Yeah, I don't really care about the giver. I care about the homeless person, right? And the person who is homeless, I don't think, gives two shits about whether the charity came from a bureaucracy or whether it comes from some individual, right? Like, and what makes this sort of religious diatribe that you've gone on so, like, wrong-headed, very clearly, is that the people who have the resources to be able to resolve a lot of these crises don't. They're not giving charity. So I don't understand why we should build a system that rewards people giving charity when they don't. Like, very straightforwardly. Like, I'm interested in a real solution to real problems, not this kind of religious screed. Fiddleford says, that is the lyrics of the International Forgot Your Material Possessions. For you have nothing if you have no rights. Yeah, it sounds great until you realize some of those quote-unquote free people are living in the streets. Yeah, annoying. Yeah, I know objectivism when I hear it. Yeah, the worship of the self. Pretty straightforward. We should really care about the people who have all the money and don't share it. The poor people who need the money, they need to earn it. That's what's really important. That's how you build a successful society, right? Keep everybody poor until they earn it. Drug Luminosity says, yeah, tax should be punitive. We should tax people who poison people more than people who don't. If you poison people, get taxed at 99%. I don't care, yeah. Content, yeah. Who cares about charity? How about a world where charity isn't necessary? Yeah. That's basically it. Like, I don't understand why we care at all about, like, oh, but you're robbing me of the ability to feel like a big man because I gave some of my money away. Okay. Boo-hoo. I don't care. Like, I don't. I don't care at all. Like, I'm sorry that you want to kind of lord it over everybody. That's essentially the argument, right? If you make it so that everybody has access to resources, then I don't get to feel like a big man and lord it over everybody. And smile big and feel like I'm a big important man. I don't care. I couldn't care less, actually. I actually find that to be really embarrassing. Like, it's like the people who say of something like a basic income, well, if you do that, then people will just sit on the couch and be lazy. And I'm like, there are people sleeping on the streets. Like, your big concern is that somebody's going to sit on the couch? Talk about your fucked up priorities. Like, that's just really fucked up priorities. Like, you're so willing to, you're so interested in ensuring that somebody won't, like, just drift by on your dime that you're fine with having them sleep on the street. It's fucked up. It's just fucked up priorities. It's weird. Individualism will never solve the climate. Yeah, absolutely. By design, it has to wait until people are negatively affected, which is too late. No, dude, we are being negatively affected. And we're going to continue being negatively affected. Like, I'm to the point now where it's just straight up, like, saying something like nationalizing the oil industry and arresting the oil executives, that's the centrist position. Like, that's not a leftist position at all. I don't even think that that's a political position. Like, arrest somebody who killed your dad is not a left or right position, right? It's not a political position to say you should arrest people who do crimes, right? The oil industry has committed crimes against humanity. No argument. Like, I don't think that you can debate it. And I think if you do debate it, you're a lunatic. Like, on the same level as, like, flat earther kind of stuff. Like, we know what the science is. We know what's going on. We see it manifesting in our daily lives. It's very obvious what's going on. And the counter arguments to the climate change denialism is clownish. Like, you look like an embarrassing fool. Like, my absolute favorite was when Jordan Peterson, who is a climate change denialist, would put up charts, but he would, like, cut off half the chart in order to, like, just blatantly lie. And his source for a lot of stuff is essentially just, like, the oil industry. It's just as embarrassing as it gets. Cody writes, I don't even believe in the self or individual. We all depend on each other. Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm getting to the point now where the concept of free will is such a funny idea. Like, oh, you have such free will. Okay, try not to poop. Tell me what your next thought is. Like, try not to pee for a minute. Just stop eating. That's fine. As if we don't have, like, things we must respond to. As if we are not driven. As if we're not constantly in a state of reaction. Like, it is possible for an individual to get into a place where they are not responding, where they're not reacting, where they are acting. But those moments are so fleeting. They're so fleeting. They're so few and far between. And really, when most people get themselves into that position where they feel as though they are actually making a choice, the choice itself is so limited in its perspective or vision that that it's not really relevant, doesn't really matter. Right? Like, whether you go to this school or that school isn't really that important. Right? Like, people don't like to hear this. The hyper-individualists especially do not like to hear this. But your life's not that important. Like, sorry, you're not that important. Like, I know that there's, like, people who get their story written down in a book, and we keep talking about them 1,000 years from now, like Alexander the Great or something, right? But they're not that important. Like, these individuals are not that important. The collective manifest material conditions and the circumstances that they are within are far more important. Like, far more important. Like, an individual grain of sand is exactly as important as an individual grain of sand must be to a beach. And to make up a beach, you must have a multitude of individual grains of sand. But no individual grain of sand supersedes the beach. And the idea that it should, or that it will, or that we should create situations in order to benefit individual grains of sand over the beach itself is dumb. It's just a dumb way to look at things. And just because you've wrapped it into a philosophy doesn't make it smart. Like, objectivism is just the lightning rod one. It's just an attempt to make selfishness normal. Like, normalizing selfishness. It's like, it's crazy. It's just absolutely outlandish thing to actually, like, I can understand a person believing in it, but to say it out loud and to try to formalize it, that's embarrassing, man. That's just some embarrassing shit. XD writes, the propaganda and distortion of what communism is runs deep as hell. You're talking to people who still believe Santa Claus is real, basically. Yeah. Like, the McCarthy period was successful in America. Like, America I think America will break apart before it goes through any kind of serious reform in this regard. Like, as long as capitalism exists, it can never have a serious conversation about communism, because communism is fundamentally a reaction and a criticism of capitalism. Like, communists are of the belief that capitalism fades away and communism replaces it. Revolution Party Canada in the chat. Hello. Good to see you. Well, it's Alexander the Nepo baby. Yeah. Like, I mean, it makes sense though, right? For somebody like Alexander the Great to exist, he needs to be standing on the backs of quote unquote giants, right? He needs to be standing on generational wealth. You can't just go from like nothing to literally taking over the entire Mediterranean and going into India and like doing all kinds of crazy shit. Like, it's just not a real thing. And if Alexander the Great, if that fellow was born to an impoverished family whose father died, it's like, yeah, he's not going to take over the Mediterranean unless he gets adopted into a family who has generational wealth, and then blah 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 blah. Right? This hyper individualist religious doctrine, right? There's a religious doctrine at play, and it's important that I don't see anybody actually talking about this, and so I always have to talk about it, because what I find always happens to me is that I'll talk about it, and then in about a year or two, sometimes 5, then people will begin talking about it. So I got to stay ahead of it. Capitalism is, in this moment, exclusively a religion. That the structure of the society can no longer seriously be called capitalist. This is feudalism. This is a feudal society that we live in. That there are feudal lords, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Musk, Peter Thiel, all of these guys. And there is a electoral system that they have seized control of in order to negotiate with one another. And that's the system that exists. It is not even remotely close to capitalism in theory, even. And so what exists is a religious holdover, right? People who use religious arguments about ethics and morals, and like that's why it's, you got to earn it, right? It's not about creating equity or justice or any of that kind of stuff. It's just about these religious ideas of some people are morally better than others. And how do we measure that? By who has more money, right? And so all of the discourse going on right now in regards to capitalism is religious. And the structure of that religion is the 3 prongs, or the 3 pillars, the unholy trinity of the capitalist death cult, as I call it. Pillar 1 is the worship of the self, right? This hyper individualism, that the most important thing that matters in the world is you. You are the author of your own fate, right? The worship of money, right? That the profit motive. We should poison the air, the water, the land for money. And money is the only measurement that matters for a person's value. Right? So it doesn't matter how kind you are. It doesn't matter how friendly you are. It doesn't matter how nice you are. It doesn't matter how communal you are. It doesn't matter how helpful you are. It doesn't matter how loving you are. It doesn't matter how nice you are. Right? None of that matters. Money is all that matters. Right? It doesn't matter how artistic you are. It doesn't matter how beautiful you are. None of that matters. How much money do you have? If you can't leverage your friendliness or your beauty or your artistic skills or whatever it is for money, then it's worthless. It has no value. And then the third pillar is, of course, the worship of chaos, what they call a free market. That instead of actually having plans or structures or any of that kind of stuff, the quote-unquote invisible hand of the free market will decide all things. And it's taken on as an article of faith and nothing else. And so this worship of the self, combined with the worship of money, combined with the worship of chaos, which Jordan Peterson very clearly articulated, right, as erecting a hierarchy, is the social structure that the religion venerates. And that people at the top of the chain are the people who have the most money, and it doesn't matter how they actually got that money. Right? That's why somebody that's why a reprehensible goon like Kevin O'Leary is taken seriously, and he's constantly on all these panel discussions, and we're actually supposed to take this obvious grifting con man seriously, when he is definitionally a horrible loser. Like, what has he ever done that has value? He's a TV guy, but he made his money conning people. He's a con man, and but that's what the society venerates. That's what the society takes seriously. That we're supposed to take him seriously because he's rich, and have no actual analysis of where that wealth came from. Like Elon Musk. We're absolutely not supposed to pay any attention to the fact that his father was an apartheid billionaire. And it's like, Elon's like, I made my money on my own. It's like, shut up, no you didn't. Like, you fucking didn't, bro. Every single bank in the world is going to give you a loan because your dad is a billionaire. From like apartheid South Africa, no less. It's like the dirtiest money. Like, the only way it could have been dirtier is if his dad was like literally a slave trader. And so and all of their stories are like this. Like, all of their stories are like this. Every time there's a billionaire of any kind, you're just like, oh, so you... Generally, the story goes like this. You took something that was being invested in communally, i.e., you were being taxed and it was being created in a government facility somewhere, and then you bribed a politician to allow you to privatize it. That's the Bill Gates story. Wait, you think Bill Gates invented Windows? Like, get the fuck out of here. No, he didn't. That the government was clearly interested in having a user interface that anybody could use, and Bill Gates was one of the people who was doing it, and he just convinced politicians, to allow him to privatize it and to send it into, quote unquote, the market. It's like, yeah, you basically created a billionaire with our tax dollars. Like, you took his, quote unquote, invention, right, that we all paid for, and allowed him to privatize it. Okay. Big fucking shocker. And it just goes that way. It's like over and over and over again. That's the story. So it's like this whole myth, this whole absurdist myth of the self-made man that exists in the society is part of the religious doctrine, right? That the religion of capitalism is really what's taken hold. And it's poisoned Christianity completely. Like, Christianity is essentially a dead ideology in the West now. There's no such thing as like an actual Christian. And you can tell. Like, you can tell really clearly, because you just talk to Christians and you're like, oh, you actually like all you have to do to see that Christians hate Christ is read one book of the Bible. One of the Gospels. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Pick one. It doesn't matter which one. And read it. And I actually really highly advise leftists do this. Right? I really highly advise that, like, communists, leftists, atheists, I really highly advise that you sit down and you read this book. Matthew, Mark, Luke, John. Pick your poison. Matthew has the best speeches. Mark is like third person post hoc folk tales. Luke is a historian, so it's like a historical account, and it is the most popular one. That's the one that gets read at Christmas. And then John was the disciple Jesus loved, and so it's the most human of the Jesus stories. Pick your poison, give it a read, and what you're going to find is you're going to be shocked, because the Christ that you're going to encounter in the book has no bearing whatsoever on the Christ that you've learned about from these Christians. That modern Christians despise Christ. They hate him. They think that he's a despicable piece of shit. Weak. A loser. Absolutely. And you can really tell because they bend over backwards to ignore his greatest commandment. Like, it's titled the Great Commandment. Christ calls it his great commandment, which is love the Lord your God with all your heart and love your neighbor as yourself. There's no asterisk that says unless he's gay or unless he's a Muslim. All right, it's love your neighbor as yourself. Very straightforward. That's a commandment, the great commandment. And modern Christians are like, F that shit. Send ICE agents, round these people up. Okay, champ. But modern Christianity has been completely poisoned by this religion of capitalism, this worship of the self, the worship of money, and the worship of chaos. And there really isn't a proper prevailing religious doctrine that's counterbalancing it. Like, so weak are other religious ideologies or religious views that people are actually taking the Catholic Church seriously again. Right? And I mean, flipping the tables at the market, Jesus was a commie. Yeah. Like, the first Christians were communists. Pretty straightforward. Yeah, modern Christians be like, no neighbors, no problem. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the modern Christian sees no issues with usury. Yeah. I was a stranger, gets my heartstrings. Cody, I'd rather stick to the Buddha Dharma. Yeah, whatever gets you through it, my man. I have my own perspective of reality and my own perspective of it. I mean, the statement of Christ where it's like, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind. Love your neighbor as yourself. It like pretty much captures it. Like, it's pretty on the money. Like, once you begin asking the very simple question, okay, what's God? Right? Like, once you have a firmer understanding of what God is supposed to be and what that represents in the world, you have a much stronger understanding of, like, oh, love your neighbor as yourself, because your neighbor is yourself. Right? They are the you that is them, and you are the them that is you. That's it. And it's like, we're all a single organism. Just how your red blood cells are, you have individual red blood cells, but they're part of a system, right? That each individual cell is required to make the whole, but the whole can persist without that individual cell. That's pretty much how we are. That we are individuals in that way, but we're part of a larger whole. And the larger whole persists without us, and it exists with us. So when you see another person, you're just looking at another version of yourself. That they've come into this reality through similar methods. They have their own journey, their own life, and their own story. And they're just in a different meat shell. But you're the same beam of light. Right? That the light that exists in all of us is the same light. It's just the meat shell that's different. That's all. And so Christ and all of these religions really attempt to articulate and capture that concept and articulate it and then focus down on, so the best thing for us to do is to treat each other with dignity and respect, because doing so not only benefits that other person, it also benefits you, right? That doing harm to another person actually harms yourself. And if you're a person who thinks that you need to seek out vengeance or you need to hurt other people around you, then you're just building a little personal hell for yourself. That's really what you're doing. And it's self-inflicted wounds. It's a self-inflicted little hell that you make for yourself. But if you say that to modern Christians, they'll just call you weak. Because that's what mattered to Christ, right? He didn't say blessed are the meek, right? He said blessed are the strong. And like, I've had people on this channel, I've had people come in and say that Christianity supports fascism. And I'm like, okay, show me the passage. I'll read it right now. And clearly what they're doing is they're just assuming the passage, right? They're taking their fascist bigotry and they're putting it into the passage. It doesn't exist in the passage. It's not even an interpretation of the passage. It's literally just saying fascism is good, and here's a Bible verse that supports my idea that fascism is good. It's like, okay, but that's starting with the conclusion, isn't it? That's not actually listening to the words of Christ and seeing what Christ says. That's saying what you want and then believing whatever you want it to be, and just scrabbling around, cherry-picking stuff. And of course, when they do that, what's the primary thing that they ignore? The Great Commandment. Right? That they take the Great Commandment and they put it aside and they pretend like it doesn't exist, even though it's the Great Commandment. And instead of taking the Great Commandment and treating that like the lens for which you see all things. Right? That I don't care if buried in chapter 17 of one of the letters Paul wrote to the Corinthians, there's a one-off mention that he didn't care for gay people, right? Like that's not a commandment, right? The Great Commandment is what matters, and that's the lens you should be looking through. And if you're not looking through that lens, then in no way are you a Christian. And I think I've only really ever met one Christian in my life. Really only one. And so that's, to me, that's the poison we need to be talking about. Like, I saw it happen when the new atheists came through. And the new atheists are like, I understood what they were up to. I got why they were who they were. It made sense. Like, the fundamentalist Christians had discredited themselves so thoroughly that an organization or a group like the new atheists were something of an inevitability. It's historically true that when religious organizations discredit themselves like that there's a counter weight that appears. And in this case, it was the new atheists. But one of the things that I think the new atheists really, how they ended up kind of discrediting themselves uh, is that for some reason they think that humans are not innately religious, that we don't innately create religion from ourselves, which we do. We are both things, right? We have the logic side, we have the logos, but we also have the eros. That we are both science and religion, and both of those things exist, and we produce both of those things. We are interested in the world scientifically, and we are interested in the world religiously. And if you don't pursue the religious impulse with intent, i.e., if you don't make something sacred with intent, then you'll do it passively. And really, I think that's what's happened to millions of people, because I think they have denied the religious self, that they really want to believe that they're just logical, hyper-individualists making decisions logically. Well, then what they've done is they've taken mundane things and made them sacred. And what's more mundane than money? Right? So they've just made money sacred because they don't have a conception of the sacred. They don't see why it's valuable to make anything sacred. And under capitalism, nothing is sacred outside of money and the self and chaos. That those are the only sacred things to be upheld. That if you attempt to upend them, then it's blasphemous. That's why taxing the rich is blasphemy, right? You can't tax the rich. They're rich, right? It's blasphemous to tax the rich, even though it's completely successful and it works every single time. The JT writes, I saw a girl pointing out a guy obsessed with the homophobic verse, and he couldn't cite a single one where Jesus was talking about love. Yeah, exactly. Like, they're just taking their bigotry. And what's really funny, I have taken to, there's an author by the name of John Shelby Spong. He's a archbishop with the Anglican Church. And he's written several books. And in one of them, he wrote this book called Reclaiming the Bible in a Secular World. I believe that's the title of it. And I really respected what he was doing, because he was trying to get away from these fundamentalists, these sort of kooky fundamentalists who think magic is real, and trying to reassert what the Bible actually is and what these stories actually are, which is like a way for us to discuss the non-rational religious side of ourselves. And and in it, he makes this really interesting argument that he thinks Paul was gay. And he makes this, this is an archbishop, right? So he's deep down the rabbit hole. And he makes this argument that he thinks Paul was gay. Because in all of Paul's writing, there's this constant theme that Paul cycles back around when he talks about himself, which he keeps talking about this thorn in his side, right? This affliction that he has. He keeps referencing it, but he never clarifies it. He never makes it obvious what it is. And so John Shelby Sung goes through all the verses where this is relevant, and he kind of goes through and does a whole bunch of context clues, and he's like, well, what could this be? And he's had a lot of conversations with other people who have looked at this, and people are like, well, maybe it is just like an ailment, just like a sickness. And he's like, yeah, but it's not physical. It's not like a physical ailment, right? Because he's talking about it like it's a sickness of his soul or something like this. And the only thing that John Shelby Sung, as he makes the argument, he's like, yeah, the only thing it really could be is that he's gay. And he's a homophobe. It's that classic thing, right? Where like the people who are the most homophobic and outspoken against homosexuality end up being gay, right? And like the it's a really good argument. He really makes it stick. And it gives the works of Paul a little bit. You read some of it and you're like, oh yeah, oh yeah, I see it. JT writes, I also don't know the history of the Old versus New Testament, and all the interpretations and languages change. There's likely misleadings of what is homophobic, and yeah, missing accounts of talking about it. Well, and also like there's just different understandings of cultural norms, right? Like oftentimes the Bible will say things like lay with another man. It'll say that kind of stuff, and we come to think of that as consensual love between two men. And like, especially in Old Testament passages, like, nah, bro, this is rape. Like, they're talking about a dude raping another dude. That's what they're talking about here. Like, that's what this is. Like, you read Leviticus. Like, go through it. I mean, it's the law, right? And there's this passage where they're like, a man shall not lie with another man. That is an abomination. And radical Christian fundamentalists like to be like, there it is, plain in black and white. But then you're like, okay, cool. Can you show me where the book forbids rape? And they're like, oh, no, I can't. It's not there. Unless this passage that you're assuming is forbidding homosexual sex is actually about rape. Unless. So you think your law allows rape but forbids consensual sex between two men. That's what you think your law does? Okay, champ. We'll get right on that. There's a lot of that, right? And there's like a lot of questions surrounding like what's the even in the passages that Paul writes about, it's like, yeah, slavery was legal. Like, some of these guys had, like, little boy rape children. Like, they had, like, a room of those. Like, the Epstein Island, but, like, in the open. Right? Like, just systemically, there it is. And what are you going to do about it? Not a fucking thing. Right? So Paul's like, ooh, that's bad. And we're like, yes, that is the same as two men loving each other. I see that that's the same. That's the decline of human civilization. Ian McKellen having sex with a man is the same as someone raping a slave. That's the same. So it's just kind of clownish. Like it's just, and to me, like, forget about the cherry picking, forget about the like reading your own interpretation, the dogmatism, all that kind of stuff. These guys think magic is real, right? They actually think, in seriousness, that magic is real. That there was a wizard walking around the Middle East casting spells, right? And we're all supposed to be like, ah, yes, you're a serious person to take seriously, man who thinks magic is real. Like, it's pretty obvious that what they're doing is they're blending history with magical storytelling, and that when the magic happens, that's the moment where the reader or the listener goes, there's something symbolic happening here. There's a message here underneath the lines, right? Like, I'm really reminded of, there's this bit, and I've talked about this before, but it's so perfect for what I'm describing right here. because we're trained to read these texts as though the magic is real, right? From the fundamentalist lens, which makes it easy to be an atheist, right? Because no, magic's not real. And Louis C.K. had a bit on this, where he's reading from the Bible and he's reading Bible verses, which is a very funny thing to do. It's very interesting. And he reads a story where Christ comes upon a fig tree, and the tree is not bearing fruit. And so he curses the fig tree, and then the fig tree dies. And of course, he tells the story a lot more, with taking a lot more time and a lot more humorously than I just told it. But that's fundamentally the story. And that the big punchline of the thing is that Peter says to Jesus, Master, look, that tree that you cursed has died. And Jesus turns to them and says, believe in God. And it's supposed to be like, what the fuck is this story about? Like, what? Jesus curses a fig tree and it dies? What kind of Jesus story is that, right? And the audience is laughing, ha ha ha, it's all very funny. Because there's this sense that this is all supposed to be literal, that Jesus was a wizard that did magic, and so what was the point of that? It doesn't make any sense. But once you understand that, okay, magic is happening, there's symbolism. So what does the fig tree represent in Rome during that period of time? Well, in the founding story of Rome, right, Romulus and Remus, the twin brothers, the founders of Rome, the demigods that found Rome, when they wash up on the banks of the Tigris, right, the spot that they wash up on, from there grows a, drum roll please, fig tree. And that the fig tree is a central symbol of the Roman Empire. And so when you have a story of a religious figure, Jesus Christ, who has moral superiority, the Son of God, going up to a fig tree and killing it, what do you think that symbolizes? Right? Like, now that you know what the fig tree represents, it's not really a big stretch of imagination. And it's pretty obvious that somebody living in a society where the fig tree is of central prominence to the central story told by the prevailing state would hear that story and be like, oh yeah, okay. I get it. Like you'd have to really try to miss it. But it's only us with our literal fundamentalist brains who have turned off our soul to mystical and magical texts and understanding symbolism, or the religious impulse that exists within us, the kind of imaginative death we've all experienced, that looks at that and goes, Jesus did magic on a fig tree. We don't know why, but he did. Okay, bud. Ooh, Grand Designs Enjoyer has returned. Achieving the state of plenty you desire, but through the avenue called dictatorship of the proletariat, risks expanding the logic of exception. Exception equals the strategy of the dictatorship beyond its original justification. There's an intimate connection between economic extraction, asset taxation, wealth confiscation, and political subjection. If whole project is embracing running a vast ecosystem, society, through force, and through the imposition of a state of exception, the dictatorship, you end up attracting a certain kind of bloodthirsty, glib-infused type of blah, 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 blah. Just the garbage capitalist propaganda you hear because acts of great cruelty and senseless violence can be exercised under the cover of necessity and crisis management. Capitalists are literally committing a genocide right now. What are you talking about? Like, what are you talking about, my man? Like, this is the kind of magical thinking, the kind of religious perspective that I'm talking about, that people take when it comes to capitalism. Your leaders, right now, Donald Trump, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, Obama, the Clintons, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush, are bloodthirsty, child-raping, genocidal maniacs. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, describe capitalism, call it communism. That's just what you're doing. It's just like this religious mantra, man. Like this inability to actually observe reality for what it is, and to just ascribe to your enemy that for which you are guilty of, which is a Goebbels tenet, by the way. Goebbels explicitly said, accuse your opposition of that for which you are guilty. Yeah, it's not genocidal until our geopolitical enemies allegedly do it. Yeah, and my favorite is the allegedly there, right, XD? Because it's like, we like, they tried to do it with the Chinese with the Uyghur genocide, which seems to have completely fallen through. Nobody bought that. Like, I think it really fell through finally because people were like, oh yeah, since when did the Americans care about Muslims? Like, what? Why are they bringing it up? It's so obviously bullshit. But really, I think the nail in the coffin is finally, like, you can go on YouTube. There's just, like, people walking around Xinjiang province talking to Uyghurs, being like, hey, is there a genocide here? And the Uyghurs are like, nah. Like, we have some, like, difficulties, and, like, there's some tensions, but, like, genocide, what the fuck? No. And, like, that's it. Story over. Right? And so now they, like, bring it down. Now the real hard-nosed guys have brought it down from genocide. They won't bring up the genocide anymore because it's so obviously a lie. But now it's like forced labor, right? Like, that's the big argument. Because no American has ever committed to forced labor. That's not a thing that Americans do. And, like, they do the same thing with the Holodomor. Like, they do the same, like, it's over and over again. It's the same fucking story again and again. Meanwhile, we have, like, the Gaza genocide recorded. Like, we have the whole thing on fucking film. Right? Like we've watched it. And we've got Netanyahu and his entire administration being like, we want to commit a genocide. Kill all Palestinians. And we've got it, like, on film. We've got the International Criminal Court being like, that is a genocide. You are guilty. Here is the arrest warrant. We have the mayor of New York saying it's a genocide. We've got European nations like the Spanish prime minister being like, yeah, if he comes here, we will arrest him. There are nations that Netanyahu can't go to, right, because of this overt, naked, capitalist genocide that's happening in front of us. And then somebody comes up and says, but what about all the genocides the communists do? Okay. It's just as unserious as it gets. It's just a religious dogma at this point. Right? Like, this is kind of what I'm talking about when I'm talking about how it's impossible now to have a reasonable discussion with capitalists because they're no longer capable of reason. That all of their talking points are just religious fanaticism at this point. And everything is just baked in to this religious worldview that they have, which is this hyper worship of themselves, right? Money and chaos. And nothing they say is moored in anything that bears reality to anything, right? They literally think that they're rich because they work hard. Like, you understand that? They're not actually saying, like, yeah, like, I everybody does this work and I benefit from that by taking their surplus value. Capitalists don't actually say that. They genuinely believe that the phone call that they make once a week to check on their finances is work. Like Jeff Bezos genuinely believes that when he wakes up at 10 a.m. And fields a yes/no question from one of his assistants, and then goes golfing, he actually thinks that's a day of work. Like, it's just clown shoes. Like, Elon Musk actually thinks walking into Twitter with a sink and firing a bunch of people and forcing everybody to like scatter around him, saying yes sir, whatever you say sir, is work. Like, it's just clown shoes. Grand Designs and Joiner says, life in the modern state is life in a permanent state of exception. You really want to deny that dictatorship, which equals state of exception? I have no idea what you're talking about, my man. Like, the modern capitalist state is a dictatorship of capitalism. It's a dictatorship of capital. Right? You can't vote against the interests of capital. Like, Drek Luminosity says, I don't understand how you can be communist after what Stalin did. What did Stalin do? Like, what did Stalin do? What's the big sin? What's the thing that's supposed to make me go, oh no, communism is evil as a foundational doctrinal theory because of this thing that Stalin did? What is it? Oh, sarcasm. But like that, these are questions that these people actually ask. Like, what did he do? What's the big thing? Near as I can tell, the capitalists are upset that he defeated the Nazis. That's really, like, I think that the capitalists would have been way happier if the Nazis had just defeated the Russians and taken over. There was a really big spoon. He had all the grain with it. There was a I forgot what I was going to say. I think that's fine. Drug Luminosity says, I mean, he destroyed churches, but that's about it. Yeah, I mean, he's fighting against Tsarism as well as foreign imperialism, right? Like, the conditions in which he's operating under, like, it's really easy to believe that there is, like, a pro-Tsarist church in like, post-revolutionary Russia, for sure. And, like, XD says, on some level, Nazism represents the ego of Europe. I mean, it's there, right? Like, it exists. The idea that white people are superior, this white supremacist worldview, it's there. It exists. And it's not going away. JT writes, it's such a shit framing, as if there's no proletariat power behind it all, and that it can be so easily usurped. It's projecting so hard. Yeah, everybody just repeats the same propaganda lines word for word. Like, I think really what we're confronting, like if it was just like, let's sit down and be reasonable about this, let's have a reasonable discussion, I think everybody would walk out of the conversation being like, yeah, like, everybody needs access to food and shelter. That's just like a universal truism. It's not correct that we should have these gatekeepers who can, like, poison our food There's literally like an explosive diarrhea crisis going on because uh, because of mismanagement going on in the United States right now. Like our forests are burning down to the point where we can't breathe the air anymore. Like we're obviously in a massive capitalist created crisis. And so what we're confronting really is not like it's the non-rational side of ourselves. And it's like that article I was reading earlier. Like what was really lacking in that article was any sense of humility. Any sense of like being humble. Any sense of just like, hey, maybe we should actually, like, the article's literally about purging people from the society. And it's like, you're not going to build a civil society that way. Direct luminosity. You want to take the dictatorship for the disconnected elite and make a society that actually benefits the taxpayer? What the fuck is wrong with you, you authoritarian? I love that. Authoritarian. What's an authoritarian? What is that? Near as I can tell, it literally means a leader who passes laws and expects those laws to be followed. And it can only be used as a pejorative in a society that worships chaos, right? If you worship freedom, quote unquote freedom, chaos. If you worship the free market, i.e. chaos, right? If your whole thing is about chaos worship, and somebody comes along and says, hey, here's a law, and we expect you to follow it, then they're an authoritarian. And it can be only used as a pejorative in that sense. Right? Like, how could you use the word authoritarian as a pejorative unless you believe that there should be no laws? Or certainly no laws that apply to you. Gamer Jam. Propaganda is everywhere, and it is released to make you hate your neighbors for what they have. The only neighbors we need to question are those that can spend millions a day and never run out of fucking money. They can own every yacht in the port and never run out of money. They're the ones who believe that they deserve to live on our deaths. Yeah. Pretty straightforward. You're nailing it. Like, the rich see us as cattle. Right? We're just stock. Yeah, authoritarian is when you're a leader of a country who's refused to be vassalized by us. Yeah. Yeah, it means people who stop capitalists from exploiting people. Yeah, exactly. You want to turn a society that worships money into a society that actually worships real hard work? Not the kind the boomers talk about? No, I don't want a society that worships quote unquote real hard work. My position on this hard work idea is that everybody's working real hard, right? Because the hardest thing you're ever going to do is dealing with yourself. That's the hardest thing you're ever going to do. And it's not even remotely close. Right? Every single person, here's a universal truism, right? Unless you experience an accident or a disease or something that intercedes in this story, and for which there is many intercessions, but the human story is that you are born, you grow, you plateau, you decline, and you die. That's the human story. Everybody experiences it unless you're struck down, which happens to a lot of us. And you can opt out at any time. Right? That's part of it too. That's the hardest thing you'll ever do. by a long shot. All of this talk, I'll be nice. All of this talk about like the grind set and the things you do and the effort and the work and all of that, that's capitalists trying to get as much money as they can out of you, right? That your wage is $7 an hour, whether you work hard or not. And they would prefer to convince you to work hard, right? They'd like to get 2 hours of work out of you for one. They'd pay you $0 if they could. We've seen that. There's lots of evidence for that. And that work that you're doing, and maybe you're doing something that is important to the society, right? Maybe you're a doctor, lawyer, engineer, right? Maybe you're part of this group of people who are actually like maintaining the fabric of the society in a more serious way. Well, guess what? That job you're doing, that's going to be nothing compared to the job that you've got coming up. You're going to look back on your life and be like, oh, that was all prep work. Right? That was all just laying the foundation for this. I promise you. Dealing with yourself is absolutely the most difficult thing for a person to do. And these capitalists saying anything other than that should be enough to completely discredit them. They're not interested in dealing with reality. They just want your money. And if they can convince you to grind set for it, they will. That what we should be doing as a people is understanding that dealing with yourself is the hardest thing a person will do. And so we should institutionalize our necessities. We should make it so that food, shelter, clothing, healthcare, and education are institutionalized. That there are no gatekeepers, that there's nobody standing in between you and your ability to have access to food, shelter, clothing, water, healthcare, education. That those things should not be for sale. You should have access to those things. Just by being alive. You don't need to earn it. You don't need to work hard for capitalists. You don't need to prove yourself to somebody. Because all they're doing is gatekeeping. They're taking a look at the things you need to survive and saying, well, you better go to work for me while I fuck off to Jeffrey Epstein's island. Nope. That's a non-starter for me, champ. And it's only the religious-minded capitalists that pretend like everything I've said would be difficult. Right? You know how the fire department works, right? That, but for food. You know how the fire department works, right? That, but for water. You know how the police department works, right? That, but for education. You know how libraries work, right? That, but for clothing. This isn't difficult. It's truly not difficult. We have the systems, they already exist. We already know how to do these things. We've done them already. We could continue doing them. We could make it so that you could walk into a grocery store, get the food, and walk out and never ever see a cashier. There's just no such thing as a cashier. It just doesn't exist. You just go in, get what you need, you leave. Well, won't a person hoard a bunch of food and just take an overabundance and waste it? We already waste 40% of our food, so they'd just be helping us out. Right? So they'll throw it out instead. And also, why would they? It's free for them to come and get. It doesn't cost them extra outside of the taxes that they pay. Which incidentally would make it a cheaper operation. As we've seen repeatedly over and over again. We have the clearest, most naked example of that very thing happening in the United States right now. Right now in the United States, the healthcare system that they have, the privatized healthcare system, is far more expensive than a universal healthcare system would be. That's why advocates for universal healthcare systems don't even price it. Because it's just cheaper. Right? We save money by going for a universal healthcare system. And like most of these, like anybody that's standing up saying like, well, how are you going to pay for that? It's cheaper. It's just cheaper. You spend less. Like, I don't know what to tell you, my man. Like, I don't know why people don't want things to be cheaper and more efficient and more effective and more accessible. And it just comes down to this religious belief system that exists in capital. Yeah, grocery stores are hoarding our food by nature of paywalling it. Yeah, the place locks up at night. And now they're even locking up the garbage bins. Because they were throwing out so much food that that people could just go to the garbage bins and get all the free, fresh food they wanted. I actually watched like a marketplace on this, CBC Marketplace, where they were like going to Walmarts and going to superstores and just like, there's this dumpster diver guy that they were walking around with. And the guy was like, at first you could tell that the journalist was like, I'm sure we're going to find stuff that's like really disgusting. And like, this is going to be like really like specific. And so we're going to make, and then this guy was like, yep, here's a pretty standard day. And he opened up a garbage bin and it was just loaded to the brim with like packaged food. Perfectly fresh, perfectly fine, just packaged, sealed, fresh. And the guy would like pull it out and be like, yeah, here's a sandwich. And like have to like open up the thing and pop it open. It was like completely fine. And just like find like you could tell the journalist was expecting it to be like smeared or crushed or things to be ruined. And by the end of it, the journalist is like, this isn't a garbage bin. This is like a buffet. Like this. Yeah, they'll have cops guarding literal trash bins next. Yeah, that has happened before. Like it's just disgraceful. But what do you expect, right? Like, what do you expect of a kind of disgraceful nation? Like, one that has fallen prey to its own self-worship. It's worship of itself. It's worship of money. It's worship of chaos. And until we actually begin seriously talking about it in those terms, and until we begin looking at these capitalists and being like, your religious dogmatism is killing us. Like, this is just religious dogmatism. Like, it has nothing to do with reality. Like, if you wanted to have a conversation about the actual physical reality of what's going on in the society, then we're talking about feudalism, baby. Like, this has nothing to do with, like, this is why having a conversation about economics with capitalists is worthless. Because they have a religious worldview. They have no material analysis. All they know is I have money and money equals good. And they think that means that they have credibility. Like, my favorite is when they'll say things like, why do you want to punish my success? Yeah, I'd like to punish successful serial killers, thieves, rapists, and money hoarders. Yeah, I'd absolutely like to punish that. 100%. I have zero respect for this talking point anymore. It's just so clownish. But, I mean, That's what you get when you start listening to clowns, right? Like when the top of your culture is fucking Joe Rogan. Okay. Or like even Jon Stewart. Like every single time there's a Mark Twain prize, everybody's like, whoa, and it's like they're literal clowns. Like I like Dave Chappelle as much as the next guy, but if that's the top of the culture, we're in a lot of trouble. We're in a lot of trouble. All right. I've reached the end of this one. Like, share, subscribe, do the things. You know what to do. Always remember, each and every one of you is a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. These billionaires are doing everything they can to prevent you from seeing it, so you'll just remain the good little commodity they need you to be. Rebel. Revolt. Repent. Good luck. We're gonna need it.